Right now, as you listen to these words, your brain is doing something extraordinary. It's deleting memories, creating false ones, and making decisions before you're even aware of thinking. Your pupils are revealing your mental effort. Your attention is creating visual reality. And your emotions are spreading like a virus to everyone around you. You think you know your own mind, but what if everything you believe about human psychology is just the tip of the iceberg? What if the real story of how your brain works is far stranger, more fascinating, and more surprising than you ever imagined? In the next hour, you'll discover 100 weird psychology facts that will completely change how you see yourself and others. These are just interesting tidbits. They mind-bending revelations about the hidden machinery operating behind the scenes of human consciousness. You'll learn why your brain has a delete button that activates while you sleep, how your memory palace has secret rooms you never knew existed, and why there's an invisible social hierarchy scanner constantly running in the background of every interaction. You'll discover that your brain generates false memories every single day, operates multiple reality construction workshops simultaneously, and maintains an entire emotional immune system you've never consciously accessed. Some of these facts will make you question the reliability of your own perceptions. Others will reveal hidden superpowers you didn't know you possessed. All of them will show you that the human mind is far more mysterious, creative, and wonderfully weird than we ever dared to imagine. Are you ready to explore the hidden universe inside your head? Let's begin this journey into the secret psychology that shapes every moment of your life. Welcome to the wonderful weirdness of the human mind. Fact 1. The Dunning-Kruger Effect's hidden twin. Most people know about the Dunning-Kruger effect, where incompetent people overestimate their abilities. However, there exists a lesser-known companion phenomenon called the imposter syndrome paradox. Highly skilled individuals often underestimate their competence, while simultaneously being acutely aware of what they don't know. This creates a psychological blind spot where expertise breeds humility to a fault. Research shows that Nobel Prize winners frequently express more uncertainty about their fields than undergraduate students do. The brain's metacognitive systems become more sophisticated with knowledge, leading to increased awareness of complexity and nuance. This paradox explains why true experts often hesitate to give definitive answers, while novices confidently make bold claims. The phenomenon affects decision-making in crucial situations, from medical diagnoses to financial investments. Interestingly, this effect becomes more pronounced in collaborative environments where experts witness other experts expressing uncertainty. The psychological mechanism involves the anterior cingulate cortex, which becomes hyperactive in monitoring for errors as expertise develops. Understanding this paradox helps explain why some of humanity's greatest minds have been plagued by self-doubt, while confidence and competence often show an inverse relationship in professional settings. Fact 2. Your brain has a delete button while you sleep. Your brain literally shrinks by up to 20%, creating space between neurons for cerebrospinal fluid to wash away metabolic waste. This process, called the glymphatic system, acts like a neural dishwasher, clearing out damaged proteins and toxins that accumulate during waking hours. The most fascinating aspect is that your brain selectively chooses which memories and neural connections to delete during this cleaning cycle. Memories that were formed without emotional significance or those that lack contextual importance are marked for deletion by specialized glial cells called microglia. These cellular janitors prune synaptic connections based on usage patterns and emotional tagging from the amygdala. Research using fluorescent tracers shows that the brain's cleanup crew works most efficiently during deep sleep phases, particularly during slow-wave sleep. This explains why sleep deprivation not only affects cognitive function, but also impairs the brain's ability to consolidate important memories while discarding irrelevant information. The deletion process isn't random, but follows specific algorithms that prioritize survival-relevant information and emotionally charged experiences. Chronic sleep disruption can lead to the accumulation of neural junk, contributing to cognitive decline and potentially neurodegenerative diseases. This natural reset mechanism evolved to keep our mental filing systems organized and efficient, ensuring that important information remains accessible while preventing cognitive overload. Fact 3. The isolation chamber hallucination timeline when placed in complete sensory deprivation. The human brain follows a predictable hallucination timeline that reveals how our minds construct reality. Within the first 30 minutes, most people report heightened awareness of their heartbeat and breathing, as the brain amplifies internal sensory signals to compensate for external silence. After 1 to 2 hours, the visual cortex begins generating its own stimuli, producing simple geometric patterns and flashing lights called phosphenes. These are untrue hallucinations, but rather the brain's attempt to process residual neural activity in the absence of visual input. Between hours 2 and 6, complex visual hallucinations emerge, often featuring faces, landscapes, or childhood memories with photographic clarity. The brain's default mode network becomes hyperactive, blending memories with spontaneous neural firing to create vivid, often bizarre scenarios. Audio hallucinations typically begin around hour 4, ranging from simple tones to complex conversations with deceased relatives or fictional characters. The temporal lobes show increased activity during this phase, suggesting that isolation triggers the same neural pathways involved in dreams and psychotic episodes. By hour 8, many subjects report profound philosophical insights and altered states of consciousness that can persist for days after the session ends. The brain's predictive processing systems, starved of external data, begin generating increasingly elaborate internal models of reality that feel absolutely convincing to the conscious mind. Fact 4. Your pupils reveal your mental effort. The size of your pupils changes not just with light levels, but also with the intensity of your mental effort, creating a window into cognitive processing that even you cannot consciously control. When engaging in difficult mental tasks like complex mathematics or deep concentration, pupils dilate by up to 50%, reflecting increased activity in the brain's attention networks. This pupillary response occurs within milliseconds of mental engagement and correlates directly with the release of norepinephrine from the locus coeruleus, the brain's alertness center. Researchers have discovered that pupil dilation patterns can predict problem-solving success before conscious awareness of the solution emerges. The phenomenon extends beyond intellectual tasks to emotional processing, with pupils dilating when viewing emotionally arousing images or recalling traumatic memories. Interestingly, pupil size also reflects moral decision-making processes, dilating more during ethical dilemmas that require weighing competing values. The autonomic nervous system controls these responses, making them nearly impossible to fake or suppress consciously. Advanced eye tracking technology now allows researchers to measure cognitive load in real time by monitoring pupil dynamics during various mental tasks. This biological indicator has practical applications in education, helping teachers identify when students are mentally overloaded, and in human-computer interfaces where pupil data can trigger adaptive responses to user mental state. The pupils essentially serve as a biological gauge of mental effort, revealing the hidden workings of consciousness through these tiny, involuntary movements. Fact 5. The backwards memory formation process. Your brain forms memories in reverse chronological order, starting with the most recent moment and working backwards through the sequence of events. This counterintuitive process, discovered through studies of patients with retrograde amnesia, reveals that memory consolidation begins with the ending and reconstructs the beginning last. During the initial hours after an experience, the hippocampus tags emotional peaks and novel elements first, creating anchor points that serve as retrieval cues for the entire memory sequence. The process involves multiple sleep cycles where the brain replays experiences in reverse order during REM sleep, strengthening connections between related neural networks. This backwards consolidation explains why the ending of an experience disproportionately influences how we remember the entire event, a phenomenon known as the Peak End Rule. Traumatic memories often show disrupted reverse consolidation, leading to fragmented recollections where emotional intensity overwhelms chronological organization. The reverse formation process also explains why eyewitness testimony becomes less reliable over time, as earlier details are the last to be consolidated and thus most vulnerable to interference. Neuroimaging studies show that the posterior hippocampus is particularly active during backwards memory replay, working in conjunction with the prefrontal cortex to organize temporal sequences. This mechanism evolved to prioritize the most recent and emotionally significant information, ensuring that survival-relevant details receive priority processing. Understanding this reverse timeline helps explain why memory enhancement techniques that work with natural consolidation patterns are more effective than those that fight against them. Fact 6. Your brain generates false memories every day. Every time you recall a memory, your brain actually reconstructs it from scattered neural fragments, inadvertently introducing small errors that accumulate over time until the memory bears little resemblance to the original event. This process, called memory reconsolidation, means that frequently recalled memories are often the least accurate, as each retrieval introduces potential distortions. The brain's memory system evolved not for perfect accuracy, but for adaptive flexibility, allowing past experiences to be updated with current knowledge and emotional context. During reconsolidation, memories become temporarily unstable and susceptible to modification by present emotions, expectations, and environmental cues. Research using controlled laboratory conditions shows that people regularly incorporate false details into their recollections without any awareness that these additions never occurred. The phenomenon becomes more pronounced with emotionally charged memories, where the amygdala's influence can enhance certain aspects while diminishing others based on current emotional state. Social factors also contribute to false memory formation, as conversations with others can introduce their perspectives and details into our own recollections. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for source monitoring, often fails to distinguish between information from personal experience versus information acquired later through suggestion or imagination. This neural quirk explains why family stories, repeated often enough, can feel like personal memories even when they occurred before birth. The implications extend beyond individual psychology to legal proceedings, where eyewitness testimony may be sincere but systematically inaccurate due to these natural memory distortion processes. Fact 7. The loneliness virus effect. Loneliness spreads through social networks like a contagious virus, with research showing that having a lonely friend increases your own likelihood of experiencing loneliness by 52%, even when controlling for other factors. This emotional contagion occurs through subtle, behavioral, and psychological changes that lonely individuals unconsciously transmit to their social contacts. Lonely people tend to interpret social interactions more negatively, leading to defensive behaviors that create distance in relationships, which then triggers similar responses in others. The phenomenon operates through multiple psychological mechanisms, including increased vigilance for social threats, reduced trust in others, and heightened sensitivity to rejection. Neuroimaging studies reveal that loneliness activates the same brain regions involved in physical pain processing, explaining why social isolation feels genuinely painful and motivates avoidance behaviors that can spread to others. The contagion effect extends up to 3 degrees of separation, meaning that your friend's friend's friend can influence your emotional state through this cascading psychological process. Interestingly, the spread of loneliness follows predictable patterns, moving more easily through weak social ties than strong ones, and affecting women differently than men due to variations in social processing styles. The evolutionary origins of this contagion likely served protective functions, allowing groups to collectively respond to social threats by becoming more cautious and selective about trust. However, in modern society, this adaptive mechanism can create destructive cycles where loneliness begets more loneliness across entire communities. Understanding this viral nature of loneliness has led to intervention strategies that target social networks rather than individuals. breaking the transmission chains that perpetuate isolation. Fact 8. Your emotions decide before you think. Emotional reactions occur approximately 400 milliseconds before conscious awareness kicks in, meaning your feelings about a situation are determined before your rational mind has any input into the decision-making process. This temporal gap, discovered through precise measurement of neural activity, reveals that the limbic system evaluates and responds to stimuli before the prefrontal cortex can engage in logical analysis. The amygdala, in particular, can trigger fight-or-flight responses, release stress hormones, and initiate behavioral reactions based on pattern recognition that operates below the threshold of consciousness. During these crucial milliseconds, your brain scans incoming information against stored emotional memories, matching current situations to past experiences and their associated outcomes. This preconscious processing explains why people often report gut feelings about decisions that later prove correct, as emotional centers have access to subtle environmental cues that conscious analysis might miss. The phenomenon becomes more pronounced under stress or time pressure, when the rational mind has even less opportunity to override emotional responses. Interestingly, this emotional precedence varies across individuals based on personality traits, with some people showing stronger emotional influence over decision-making, while others develop better integration between emotional and rational systems. The delay between emotion and conscious thought also explains why techniques like counting to 10 before responding can be effective, as they provide enough time for rational analysis to catch up with emotional reactions. Understanding this sequence helps explain seemingly irrational behaviors and supports the importance of emotional intelligence in effective decision-making and interpersonal relationships. Fact 9. The observer effect on personal behavior. The mere knowledge that someone might be watching fundamentally alters human behavior, even when no observer is actually present, a phenomenon that extends far beyond simple performance. Anxiety to reshape personality expression and decision-making processes. This psychological observer effect occurs because the brain maintains a constant simulation of how others might perceive our actions, creating an internal audience that influences behavior even in complete solitude. Neuroimaging studies show increased activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for social cognition, when people believe they might be observed, suggesting that the mere possibility of observation triggers complex social processing systems. The effect manifests differently across cultures, with collectivistic societies showing stronger observer influence compared to individualistic ones, reflecting learned patterns of social monitoring and reputation management. Interestingly, even the illusion of observation can produce behavioral changes, as demonstrated in studies where non-functional cameras or simple eye-shaped images reduce cheating and increase prosocial behavior. The psychological mechanism involves what researchers call the imagined audience, where people automatically generate mental representations of potential observers and modify their behavior to align with perceived social expectations. This internal monitoring system evolved as a crucial component of group living, helping individuals maintain social standing and avoid ostracism in ancestral environments. However, modern technology and social media have created unprecedented levels of potential observation, leading to increased anxiety and performative behavior that can interfere with authentic self-expression. The observer effect also explains why private moral behavior often differs from public moral behavior, as the imagined audience's values may conflict with personal beliefs and desires. Fact 10. Your brain sees faces in everything. The human brain contains specialized neural circuitry so finely tuned to detect faces that it routinely perceives facial features in clouds, electrical outlets, car fronts, and virtually any configuration of 3 points arranged in a triangular pattern. This phenomenon, called pareidolia, occurs because face detection was so crucial for survival that evolution created an extremely sensitive system that errs on the side of false positives rather than missing actual faces. The fusiform face area, located in the temporal lobe. It activates within 100 milliseconds of encountering face-like patterns, faster than almost any other visual processing system in the brain. This rapid response evolved because quickly identifying faces allowed our ancestors to distinguish between friends and foes, potential mates and rivals, and group members versus strangers in life or death situations. The face detection system operates independently of conscious attention, meaning you can perceive faces and objects even when focused on other tasks or viewing images peripherally. Interestingly, the brain's face detection threshold varies among individuals, with some people showing higher sensitivity to face-like patterns in random stimuli, while others require more explicit facial features for activation. Cultural factors also influence face perception, as different societies emphasize different facial features and expressions, leading to variations in what triggers the face detection system. The phenomenon extends beyond visual processing to include auditory pareidolia, where people hear voices or speech patterns in random sounds like wind or machinery. This hyperactive pattern recognition system demonstrates how evolutionary pressures shaped modern cognition, creating mental processes that continue to influence daily experience thousands of years after they provided survival advantages. Fact 11. The color of your mood. Colors can measurably alter brain chemistry and mood states within minutes of exposure, with specific wavelengths triggering predictable psychological and physiological responses that persist even after the color source is removed. Blue light exposure increases cortisol production and alertness while suppressing melatonin synthesis, explaining why evening screen time disrupts sleep patterns and morning blue light exposure can combat seasonal depression. Red environments elevate heart rate and blood pressure while enhancing physical performance and competitive behavior, but also increasing aggressive tendencies and impatience in prolonged exposure. Green spaces reduce cortisol levels and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting healing and stress recovery through mechanisms that may involve evolutionary associations with safety and abundance. The psychological impact of color operates through both learned associations and biological responses, with cultural meanings overlaying innate neural reactions to different wavelengths of light. Interestingly, color effects occur even in peripheral vision and can influence behavior, when people are unaware of the color's presence, suggesting that color processing operates below conscious awareness. The phenomenon extends to imagined colors, where simply thinking about specific colors can trigger measurable changes in brain activity and emotional state. Individual differences in color sensitivity relate to variations in cone cell density and neural processing efficiency, leading to personalized color responses that may influence preferences for different environments and activities. Therapeutic applications of color psychology include chromotherapy for mood disorders, color-coordinated environments in healthcare settings, and strategic color use in educational and work environments to optimize psychological states. The research reveals that humans exist in a constant dialogue with their visual environment, with colors serving as invisible influencers of mental and emotional experience throughout daily life. Fact 12. Your brain's time travel machine. The default mode network in your brain spends approximately 50% of its time engaged in mental time travel, spontaneously projecting consciousness into past memories and future scenarios without any conscious direction or awareness. This temporal displacement occurs during moments when external attention demands are minimal, such as during routine tasks, waiting periods, or just before sleep, revealing that the resting brain is anything but inactive. The neural network responsible for mental time travel includes the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and angular gyrus, regions that coordinate to create coherent narratives across temporal boundaries. Research using experience sampling methods shows that people's minds wander to the future approximately twice as often as to the past, suggesting an evolutionary bias toward planning and preparation over reminiscence. The quality and direction of mental time travel correlates with personality traits, emotional states, and mental health, with depressed individuals showing increased past focus and anxious individuals demonstrating excessive future orientation. Interestingly, the brain's time travel capabilities appear to be uniquely human, with other species showing limited evidence of detailed episodic memory or future planning compared to the rich temporal simulations humans create effortlessly. The phenomenon has practical implications for well-being, as excessive mental time travel can reduce present moment awareness and life satisfaction, while appropriate temporal flexibility enhances problem-solving and emotional regulation. Meditation practices that increase present moment attention can reduce default mode network activity and decrease tendencies toward rumination and worry. The discovery that consciousness naturally operates across multiple time dimensions challenges traditional notions of linear experience and highlights the brain's remarkable ability to transcend the immediate moment through pure mental construction. Fact 13. The phantom vibration syndrome. Over 80% of mobile phone users regularly experience phantom vibrations, feeling their device buzz or ring when no notification has actually occurred, revealing how deeply technology has rewired fundamental neural pathways responsible for sensory processing. This phenomenon occurs because the brain's predictive processing systems, designed to anticipate important sensory information, begin generating false positive signals when constantly primed to detect phone notifications. The tactile hallucinations typically manifest in the pocket or location where individuals habitually carry their phones, demonstrating how the nervous system creates localized sensitivity zones based on behavioral patterns and expectation. Neuroplasticity research shows that heavy phone use can alter somatosensory cortex organization, dedicating increased neural real estate to processing signals from phone carrying body areas while potentially reducing sensitivity elsewhere. The phantom vibrations often intensify during periods of high stress or anticipation, suggesting that emotional state modulates the brain's tendency to generate false sensory experiences when expecting important communications. Interestingly, the phenomenon extends beyond phones to include phantom rings from landlines, phantom email notifications, and even phantom social media alerts, indicating a broader pattern of technology-induced sensory prediction errors. The frequency of phantom vibrations correlates with attachment anxiety and fear of missing out, revealing underlying psychological needs that drive the brain to maintain constant vigilance for social connection signals. Treatment approaches focus on gradually reducing phone-checking behaviors and implementing mindfulness practices that increase awareness of actual versus imagined sensory experiences. The syndrome represents a fascinating example of how modern technology can hijack ancient neural systems designed for survival vigilance, creating new forms of sensory dysfunction that didn't exist in previous generations of human experience. Fact 14. Your memory palace has furniture. The brain automatically organizes memories using spatial relationships and environmental contexts, creating detailed mental maps where specific information becomes associated with particular locations, objects, and environmental features. This spatial memory system explains why returning to childhood homes can trigger floods of associated memories, and why students often perform better on exams when tested in the same room where they studied. The hippocampus contains specialized place cells and grid cells that create cognitive maps of both physical and conceptual spaces, allowing abstract information to be stored using the same neural mechanisms that evolved for navigation and spatial awareness. Memory champions exploit this natural system through the method of loci, mentally placing information within familiar architectural spaces and then retrieving it by virtually walking through these constructed environments. Research shows that people spontaneously use spatial metaphors when organizing complex information, describing time as horizontal movement, categories as containers, and hierarchies as vertical structures. The phenomenon extends to digital environments, where interface design that mimics spatial organization enhances learning and recall compared to abstract organizational systems. Interestingly, Individuals with strong spatial memory abilities often show enhanced performance in mathematics, engineering, and other fields that require mental manipulation of complex relationships. The spatial nature of memory also explains why environmental context cues can trigger unwanted memories in trauma survivors. As locations become involuntarily linked with emotional experiences through the same mechanisms that support normal memory organization. Understanding spatial memory principles has led to architectural designs that support cognitive function, educational approaches that leverage environmental context, and therapeutic interventions that modify spatial associations to reduce traumatic memory triggers. Fact 15. The invisible gorilla in your emotions. Humans consistently fail to notice gradual changes in their own emotional states, a phenomenon called emotional change blindness that parallels the famous visual attention experiments where people miss obvious environmental changes while focused elsewhere. This emotional inattention occurs because the brain's mood monitoring systems adapt continuously to internal states, making gradual shifts virtually invisible to conscious awareness, even when they significantly impact behavior and decision-making. Research using mood tracking applications reveals that people's estimates of their emotional states often diverge dramatically from real-time measurements, with particularly poor accuracy for detecting the onset of negative moods like depression or anxiety. The phenomenon has serious implications for mental health, as individuals may not recognize developing psychological problems until symptoms become severe enough to interfere with daily functioning. Emotional change blindness also affects interpersonal relationships, where partners may fail to notice gradual shifts in each other's moods and satisfaction levels, leading to sudden relationship crises that seem to come from nowhere. The brain's prediction systems contribute to this blindness by constantly adjusting expectations based on recent emotional experiences, making each new emotional state feel normal relative to immediately preceding states. Interestingly, external observers often detect emotional changes more accurately than the individuals experiencing them, suggesting that emotional self-awareness requires intentional monitoring rather than passive introspection. Mindfulness practices and regular mood journaling can combat emotional change blindness by creating conscious monitoring systems that override natural adaptation mechanisms. The discovery of emotional change blindness challenges assumptions about self-knowledge and highlights the importance of external feedback and systematic self-monitoring for maintaining emotional health and relationship satisfaction. Fact 16. Your brain's prediction addiction. The human brain consumes approximately 20% of the body's total energy, with the majority dedicated not to responding to current sensory input, but to generating predictions about future states and preparing responses before they are needed. This predictive processing operates continuously across all cognitive domains, from anticipating the next word in conversations to predicting the trajectory of moving objects and the likely outcomes of social interactions. The brain's prediction systems are so fundamental that conscious experience may be better understood as a continuous stream of predictions being tested against reality rather than passive reception of sensory information. When predictions prove accurate, the brain experiences reward like neural activity, creating an addictive cycle where successful prediction becomes inherently pleasurable and motivating. This addiction to prediction explains human fascination with patterns, puzzles, mysteries, and narrative structures that provide opportunities for successful forecasting and resolution. The predictive systems become dysregulated in various psychological conditions, with anxiety involving excessive prediction of negative outcomes, depression characterized by inability to predict positive future states, and psychosis featuring predictions disconnected from environmental feedback. Interestingly, individual differences in prediction accuracy correlate with intelligence, creativity, and social skills, suggesting that predictive ability represents a core component of cognitive fitness. The brain's predictive addiction also explains why uncertainty is psychologically uncomfortable and why humans often prefer predictable negative outcomes over unpredictable positive ones. Modern environments that provide constant novel stimulation may overwhelm natural prediction systems, contributing to attention difficulties and chronic stress as the brain struggles to forecast increasingly complex and rapidly changing situations. Fact 17. The empathy gap between hot and cold states. People consistently underestimate how much their decision-making will change when they transition between different emotional and physiological states, creating empathy gaps that lead to poor planning and self-control failures. When individuals are in calm, rational states, they systematically underpredict how hunger, anger, sexual arousal, or fear will influence their future choices and behavior patterns. This temporal empathy failure occurs because the brain has difficulties simulating the subjective experience of different internal states, leading to planning decisions based on current rather than anticipated future psychological conditions. Research demonstrates that people make fundamentally different moral judgments, financial decisions, and social choices when physiologically aroused compared to calm states. Yet they fail to account for these predictable changes when planning ahead. The phenomenon helps explain why dieters consistently overestimate their ability to resist food temptation, why people underestimate the impact of emotions on important decisions, and why individuals repeatedly make commitments they cannot maintain when their internal state changes. Neuroimaging studies show that the prefrontal cortex regions responsible for planning and self-control show reduced activity during aroused states, while limbic regions associated with immediate gratification become dominant. The empathy gap also operates in reverse, where people in highly emotional states cannot accurately remember what it felt like to be calm and rational, leading to extreme decisions that seem incomprehensible once the emotional state passes. Understanding these state-dependent changes in decision-making has practical applications for designing environments and policies that account for predictable human limitations rather than assuming consistent rational behavior across different psychological states. Fact 18. Your social brain never sleeps, even during deep sleep. Specialized neural networks continue monitoring for social information, with the sleeping brain showing differential responses to hearing one's own name versus strangers' names and processing social emotional content differently from non-social information. This persistent social vigilance evolved because social threats and opportunities could arise at any time, requiring constant readiness to respond to interpersonal dynamics even during vulnerable states. Sleep studies using auditory stimulation reveal that the brain prioritizes processing voices over environmental sounds, familiar voices over unfamiliar ones, and emotional vocal tones over neutral ones, maintaining a hierarchy of social alertness during unconscious states. The phenomenon extends to dream content, where social interactions dominate most dream narratives and the brain rehearses complex interpersonal scenarios that often reflect waking social concerns and relationships. Interestingly, individuals with autism spectrum disorders show reduced social processing during sleep, suggesting that neurotypical social cognition involves continuous background monitoring that operates independently of conscious attention. The social brain's nighttime activity includes memory consolidation processes that preferentially strengthen socially relevant information, while potentially forgetting less socially significant details from daily experience. This selective social memory enhancement may explain why emotional interpersonal events show enhanced recall compared to equally significant but non-social experiences. The discovery that social cognition operates continuously challenges traditional distinctions between social and non-social mental processes, suggesting instead that human consciousness exists within a fundamentally social framework that colors all aspects of psychological experience. Sleep deprivation particularly impairs social cognition, possibly because the social monitoring systems become overwhelmed without adequate recovery time. Fact 19. The illusion of explanatory depth. People consistently overestimate their understanding of how common objects work, believing they possess detailed knowledge about mechanisms like bicycles, toilets, or zippers until asked to explain these systems step by step. This illusion of explanatory depth occurs because the brain conflates familiarity with understanding, creating false confidence in knowledge that exists primarily as vague associations rather than precise mechanistic comprehension. The phenomenon becomes apparent when individuals attempt to provide causal explanations for everyday phenomena, revealing that most people operate with surprisingly shallow understanding of the world around them while maintaining strong confidence in their knowledge. Research demonstrates that even brief attempts to explain familiar systems reduce overconfidence and increase intellectual humility, suggesting that the illusion persists, partly because people rarely test their explanatory knowledge. The effect extends beyond physical systems to include social policies, economic principles, and scientific phenomena, where people often hold strong opinions based on illusory understanding of complex causal relationships. Neuroimaging studies suggest that the brain as familiarity detection systems can trigger confidence signals without engaging deeper analytical processes, creating subjective feelings of understanding that don't correspond to actual knowledge depth. The illusion has practical implications for education, political decision-making, and expert-novice communication, where overconfidence in understanding can lead to poor choices and resistance to learning. Interestingly, experts in specific domains show reduced susceptibility to explanatory depth illusions within their areas of expertise, but remain vulnerable in unfamiliar domains. The phenomenon highlights fundamental limitations in human self-knowledge and the importance of distinguishing between familiarity and true understanding in both personal and social contexts. Fact 20. Your brain edits your vision. The human visual system actively constructs what you see rather than passively recording optical information, with the brain filling in missing details, enhancing certain features, and suppressing irrelevant information before conscious perception occurs. This visual editing process operates continuously, creating the illusion of complete, stable, high-resolution vision across the entire visual field, despite the fact that only a tiny central area actually receives detailed visual input. The blind spot where the optic nerve connects to the retina demonstrates this construction process most clearly, as the brain seamlessly fills in missing visual information using surrounding context and expectations. Saccadic masking provides another example of visual editing, where the brain suppresses visual input during rapid eye movements to prevent the perception of blurred motion, creating the illusion of smooth, continuous vision during activities like reading. The visual system also performs temporal editing, adjusting the timing of visual events to create coherent perceptual experiences that may not match the actual timing of physical events. Color constancy represents sophisticated neural editing where the brain adjusts color perception based on lighting conditions, allowing objects to appear consistently colored despite dramatic changes in illumination. Motion perception involves extensive editing processes where the brain predicts object trajectories and smooths irregular movements to create fluid motion experiences. These visual editing processes can be disrupted by various conditions, revealing how much conscious visual experience depends on active neural construction rather than passive optical recording. Understanding visual editing has practical applications for user interface design, virtual reality development, and treatments for visual processing disorders. Fact 21. The paradox of choice paralysis. Humans experience decreased satisfaction and increased anxiety when presented with too many options, with research showing that choice satisfaction peaks at approximately 10 alternatives before declining as additional options. Create cognitive overload and decision paralysis. This paradox occurs because the brain's decision-making systems evolved to handle relatively simple choices between limited alternatives, becoming overwhelmed and inefficient when confronted with the extensive option arrays common in modern consumer environments. The phenomenon manifests differently across decision types, with high-stakes choices showing earlier onset of choice paralysis compared to low-stakes decisions, and complex choices requiring more cognitive resources, showing greater susceptibility to option overload. Neuroimaging studies reveal that excessive choices activate brain regions associated with stress and conflict processing while reducing activity in areas responsible for satisfaction and reward, explaining why abundant choice can paradoxically decrease well-being. The paralysis effect is moderated by individual differences in decision-making style, with maximizers who seek the best possible outcome showing greater susceptibility compared to satisficers who accept good enough solutions. Cultural factors also influence choice paralysis, with individualistic societies showing stronger preferences for extensive choice options despite experiencing negative consequences, while collectivistic cultures often prefer limited, pre-selected alternatives. The paradox has significant implications for marketing, product design, and policy making, where providing optimal rather than maximum choice options can improve consumer satisfaction and decision outcomes. Strategies for managing choice overload include categorization, recommendation systems, and progressive disclosure techniques that present information in manageable chunks rather than overwhelming arrays. Fact 22. Your memory rewrites history each time you recall a memory. Your brain doesn't simply retrieve stored information, but actively reconstructs the experience using current knowledge, emotions, and expectations, often altering details without any conscious awareness of these modifications. This reconstructive process means that vivid, confidently held memories can be completely inaccurate. Incorporating information learned after the original event, emotional coloring from subsequent experiences, and details suggested by others' accounts. The phenomenon is particularly pronounced for emotional memories, where current mood states can dramatically alter how past events are remembered and interpreted, creating consistency between present feelings and reconstructed past experiences. Research using controlled laboratory conditions demonstrates that people regularly incorporate false information into their memories when exposed to misleading questions or suggestions, even when warned about potential memory distortion. The brain's memory reconstruction process serves adaptive functions by allowing past experiences to be updated with current knowledge and integrated with evolving personal narratives. But this flexibility comes at the cost of historical accuracy. Repeated recall strengthens memories, but also increases their susceptibility to modification, creating a paradox where frequently remembered events may become least accurate over time. The reconstructive nature of memory has profound implications for legal proceedings, therapeutic interventions, and personal identity formation, challenging assumptions about the reliability of human recollection. Individual differences in memory reconstruction relate to personality traits, suggestibility, and cognitive abilities, with some people showing greater resistance to memory modification, while others demonstrate enhanced flexibility in updating past experiences. Understanding memory reconstruction helps explain why different people can have dramatically different recollections of shared experiences and why eyewitness testimony, despite feeling completely accurate to the witness, often contains systematic errors and distortions. Fact 23. The spotlight effect of self-consciousness. People dramatically overestimate how much others notice their appearance, behavior, and mistakes, a phenomenon called the spotlight effect that creates unnecessary social anxiety and self-consciousness based on the false belief that one is the center of others' attention. This cognitive bias occurs because individuals have privileged access to their own thoughts, feelings, and concerns, making personal experiences feel more prominent and noticeable than they actually appear to external observers. Research consistently shows that when people believe they've made social mistakes, experienced embarrassing moments, or displayed unusual behavior, their estimates of how much others noticed exceed actual observer attention by factors of 2 to 3. The spotlight effect intensifies during adolescence and early adulthood when social self-consciousness peaks, but persists throughout life as a fundamental feature of human social cognition. Neuroimaging studies reveal heightened activity in self-referential brain networks when people believe they're being observed, suggesting that the anticipation of attention triggers intensive self-monitoring processes that consume cognitive resources. The phenomenon has practical implications for public speaking anxiety, social performance, and interpersonal relationships, where fear of being judged often exceeds actual social evaluation. Interestingly, the spotlight effect operates bidirectionally, with people also overestimating how much others notice their positive qualities and accomplishments, though negative events typically show stronger spotlight effects than positive ones. Understanding this bias can reduce social anxiety by helping individuals recognize that their perceived social visibility is largely illusory, and that others are typically more focused on their own concerns than external judgment. The spotlight effect demonstrates how the brain's self-referential processing systems can create distorted, tasked perceptions of social reality that influence behavior and emotional well-being. Fact 24. Your brain's background noise generator. The brain continuously generates random neural activity called spontaneous neural oscillations that serve as background noise, influencing perception, decision-making, and consciousness in ways that create genuine randomness in human behavior and experience. This neural noise isn't simply electrical interference, but represents fundamental variability in brain function that prevents predictable, deterministic responses to identical stimuli. Research shows that spontaneous neural fluctuations influence sensory thresholds, making the same physical stimulus sometimes noticeable and sometimes imperceptible, depending on background brain states at the moment of stimulation. The phenomenon contributes to behavioral variability, ensuring that humans don't respond identically to repeated situations, which provides adaptive flexibility and prevents predictable patterns that could be exploited by predators or competitors. Spontaneous neural activity varies across individuals and correlates with personality traits, creativity levels, and susceptibility to various psychological conditions, suggesting that neural noise represents an important source of individual differences. The background noise generation process involves complex interactions between different brain regions, with some areas amplifying random fluctuations, while others suppress them based on current behavioral demands and attention states. Interestingly, certain mental disorders involve dysregulation of neural noise systems, with conditions like ADHD potentially involving excessive background noise and depression possibly characterized by reduced neural variability. The discovery of purposeful neural noise challenges deterministic models of brain function and suggests that some degree of randomness is essential for healthy psychological functioning. Understanding neural noise has implications for artificial intelligence development, where incorporating randomness into decision-making systems may be necessary for creating truly adaptive and flexible artificial minds that can match human behavioral complexity. Fact 25. The illusion of control over random events. Humans consistently overestimate their ability to influence random events, believing they can control outcomes through ritual behaviors, positive thinking, or strategic actions, even when dealing with purely chance-based situations like lottery drawings or dice games. This illusion of control stems from the brain's tendency to detect patterns and causal relationships even in random sequences, creating false confidence and personal influence over uncontrollable events. The phenomenon manifests in gambling behaviors where players develop elaborate systems and superstitions, financial markets where investors believe they can predict random price fluctuations, and everyday situations where people attribute chance outcomes to personal actions or characteristics. Research demonstrates that the illusion of control intensifies when people have choice over some aspect of a random situation, such as selecting their own lottery numbers versus receiving assigned numbers, even though the probability remains identical. The brain mechanisms underlying this illusion involve the anterior, cingulate cortex and prefrontal regions that normally monitor for controllable versus uncontrollable situations, but show reduced discrimination accuracy when dealing with complex or delayed feedback systems. Interestingly, mild depression can actually improve accuracy in assessing control over random events. a phenomenon called depressive realism, where reduced positive illusions lead to more accurate perceptions of personal influence. The illusion of control has adaptive benefits in motivating persistent effort and maintaining psychological well-being, but can lead to problematic behaviors when applied inappropriately to genuinely random situations. Cultural factors influence the strength of control illusions, with individualistic societies showing stronger beliefs in personal control, while collectivistic cultures may attribute more outcomes to external forces and group dynamics. Understanding control illusions helps explain why people persist in ineffective behaviors and why interventions that acknowledge human needs for perceived control tend to be more successful than those that emphasize helplessness or randomness. Fact 26. Your brain's automatic lie detector. The human brain possesses sophisticated neural systems for detecting deception that operate below conscious awareness, processing microexpressions, vocal patterns, and behavioral inconsistencies to generate intuitive feelings about others' honesty without explicit reasoning. These unconscious lie detection systems evolved because accurately assessing trustworthiness was crucial for survival in social environments where deception could lead to exploitation, betrayal, or danger. Research using subliminal presentation of facial expressions shows that people can detect deceptive expressions even when stimuli are presented too briefly for conscious recognition, suggesting that lie detection operates through rapid, automatic processing pathways. The brain's lie detection network includes the superior temporal sulcus, which processes social intentions, and the amygdala, which generates emotional responses to perceived threats, including potential deception. Interestingly, conscious attempts to detect lies often perform worse than unconscious processing, as deliberate analysis can override more accurate, intuitive judgments with less reliable stereotypes and explicit theories about deceptive behavior. The accuracy of automatic lie detection varies among individuals, with some people showing remarkable intuitive abilities to detect deception, while others demonstrate systematic biases that impair judgment. Professional training can sometimes improve lie detection accuracy, but even experts rarely exceed 70% accuracy in controlled conditions, suggesting fundamental limitations in human deception detection abilities. The neural lie detection systems can be influenced by factors like stress, fatigue, and emotional state, potentially leading to false accusations when these systems become hyperactive or misattribute anxiety to deceptive intent. Modern technology challenges these evolved lie detection systems by creating new forms of deception through digital manipulation, social media personas, and virtual interactions that may not trigger the same neural responses as face-to-face deception. Fact 27. The hidden influence of background music. Background music alters brain chemistry, cognitive performance, and decision-making in predictable ways that operate largely outside conscious awareness, influencing everything from shopping behavior to problem-solving abilities through direct neural stimulation pathways. Different musical elements trigger specific psychological responses, with tempo affecting arousal and energy levels, harmony influencing mood states, and rhythm entraining neural oscillations that can enhance or impair various cognitive functions. Research demonstrates that classical music with complex harmonic structures can enhance spatial reasoning and mathematical performance, while simple, repetitive music may improve focus for routine tasks, but impair creative thinking. The phenomenon occurs because musical processing engages multiple brain networks simultaneously, including auditory cortex, motor regions, emotional centers, and memory systems, creating widespread neural effects that influence cognition beyond pure auditory experience. Retail environments strategically use background music to influence purchasing decisions, with slower tempos encouraging browsing and higher spending, while faster music increases turnover and impulse purchases through subconscious arousal modulation. The effects of background music vary significantly among individuals based on musical training, personality traits, and current mood states, with some people showing enhanced performance while others experience distraction or stress from the same musical stimuli. Interestingly, Familiar music tends to be more distracting than unfamiliar music because recognition processes compete with other cognitive tasks for attention resources. While completely novel music may require too much processing to serve as effective background stimulation, the influence of background music extends to social behavior, with certain types of music increasing cooperation and prosocial behavior, while others may enhance competitive or aggressive tendencies through emotional priming mechanisms. Understanding musical influences on cognition has practical applications for workplace design, educational environments, and therapeutic interventions where carefully selected background music can optimize psychological states for specific objectives. Fact 28. Your memory has multiple timelines. The brain maintains separate memory systems that operate on different timescales, creating multiple overlapping versions of personal history that can sometimes contradict each other and influence behavior through independent pathways. Working memory operates on seconds to minutes. Episodic memory spans days to decades, and semantic memory accumulates over entire lifetimes, with each system using distinct neural networks and storage mechanisms. These parallel memory timelines can create temporal confusion where recent events feel distant. Old memories seem recent, and the subjective experience of time becomes disconnected from actual chronological sequences. The phenomenon becomes particularly apparent during significant life transitions, traumatic experiences, or periods of intense learning when different memory systems update at different rates and may encode conflicting information about the same events. Research shows that emotional memories often maintain separate timelines from factual memories, allowing people to remember objective details accurately while experiencing completely different emotional associations that may correspond to different time periods or contexts. The multiple timeline system serves adaptive functions by allowing rapid access to recent information through working memory, while maintaining long-term stability through semantic memory, but can create psychological difficulties when timelines become desynchronized. Aging affects different memory timelines unequally, with working memory typically showing earlier decline, while semantic memory may remain stable or even improve, creating characteristic patterns of memory change that vary among individuals. The discovery of multiple memory timelines helps explain why people can simultaneously know that past traumatic events are over, while continuing to experience them as present threats, and why therapeutic interventions often need to address different memory systems separately. Understanding memory timelines has implications for education, where information needs to transfer successfully between different temporal storage systems, and for treating memory-related disorders where specific timeline disruptions may require targeted interventions. Fact 29. The phantom limb of social connection. Humans experience social pain through the same neural pathways used for physical pain processing, creating genuine hurt feelings that register in the brain, identically to bodily injury, and can be treated with similar intervention strategies. This neurological overlap explains why social rejection, exclusion, and relationship loss create experiences described using physical pain metaphors like heartbreak, hurt feelings, and emotional wounds that accurately reflect underlying brain activity. The anterior cingulate cortex and right ventral prefrontal cortex show identical activation patterns during social pain and physical pain, suggesting that social injury represents a fundamental threat category that the brain processes as seriously as bodily harm. Research demonstrates that over-the-counter pain medications can reduce the intensity of social pain, while social support and connection can modulate physical pain sensitivity through shared neural mechanisms. The phenomenon has evolutionary origins in the critical importance of social bonds for survival, where social isolation posed genuine threats to safety, resources, and reproduction, making social pain an adaptive signal for maintaining group membership. Individual differences in social pain sensitivity correlate with attachment styles, personality traits, and susceptibility to depression, with some people showing heightened vulnerability to social injury, while others demonstrate greater resilience. The social pain system can become dysregulated in various psychological conditions, with social anxiety potentially involving hypersensitivity to social threat signals and autism, possibly characterized by altered social pain processing. Interestingly, the brain can experience phantom social pain, similar to phantom limb pain, where individuals continue to feel social rejection or abandonment, even after relationships have been restored or social connections re-established. Understanding social pain as genuine neural injury has implications for treating relationship problems, workplace conflicts, and social adjustment difficulties by recognizing that social hurt requires active healing processes rather than simply cognitive reframing. Fact 30. Your brain creates placeholder people when processing incomplete social information. The brain automatically generates detailed personality profiles for unknown individuals using statistical patterns, cultural stereotypes, and personal experiences to fill in missing characteristics and predict behavior. These placeholder people become surprisingly detailed and persistent mental representations that influence expectations, interactions, and judgments, even when based on minimal, actual information about real individuals. The process occurs so rapidly and automatically that people often mistake these generated characteristics for actual observations, leading to false confidence in personality assessments based on brief encounters or limited information. Research shows that placeholder generation draws from implicit association networks in memory, combining features that commonly co-occur in the individual's social experience to create coherent but potentially inaccurate personality profiles. The phenomenon has significant implications for first impressions, hiring decisions, and social relationships, where initial placeholder profiles can become self-fulfilling prophecies that shape subsequent interactions and prevent accurate perception of actual personality traits. Interestingly, placeholder people can be more detailed and vivid than memories of real individuals, because the brain actively constructs them to be coherent and meaningful rather than preserving the random inconsistencies of actual human personality. The generation process varies among individuals based on social experience, cultural background, and cognitive biases, with some people creating more accurate placeholders, while others generate profiles that reflect personal fears, desires, or prejudices. The brain's tendency to create placeholder people extends beyond individuals to include entire social groups, organizations, and cultures, where limited information gets expanded into comprehensive but potentially misleading social models. Understanding placeholder generation helps explain why social media profiles, brief interactions, and secondhand information can create such strong impressions, despite providing minimal actual insight into others' true characteristics and motivations. Fact 31. The emotional contagion network, emotions, spread through social networks following predictable transmission patterns similar to infectious diseases, with happiness, sadness, anger, and fear moving between individuals through unconscious mimicry, shared attention, and synchronized physiological responses. This emotional contagion operates through multiple channels, including facial expression, mirroring, vocal tone matching, and autonomic nervous system synchronization that occurs within milliseconds of social contact. Research tracking large social networks reveals that emotional states can influence individuals up to 3 degrees of separation, meaning that your friend's emotions can measurably affect your mood and behavior through cascading social transmission. The contagion process involves specialized neural systems, including mirror neurons, that automatically simulate others' emotional states and the limbic system, which generates corresponding feelings without conscious decision-making or awareness. Different emotions show varying transmission rates, with negative emotions generally spreading more rapidly than positive ones. Due to evolutionary biases toward threat detection and social danger assessment, the phenomenon helps explain how emotional climates develop in families, workplaces, and communities, where dominant emotional patterns can persist and influence new members through social learning and unconscious modeling. Individual differences in emotional contagion susceptibility relate to empathy levels, social sensitivity, and boundary-setting abilities. With highly empathetic people showing greater vulnerability to emotional influence while also serving as stronger transmitters to others. The contagion process can be disrupted by physical distance, emotional awareness, and deliberate regulation strategies, but operates most powerfully in close relationships and frequent social contact situations. Understanding emotional contagion networks has practical applications for team management, organizational culture development, and community mental health interventions where targeting influential individuals can create positive emotional changes that ripple throughout social systems. Fact 32. Your brain's hidden mathematics, mathematical thinking, occurs throughout human cognition in ways that extend far beyond formal mathematics education, with the brain using numerical and geometric principles to organize perception, memory, decision-making, and social relationships. This hidden mathematics operates through specialized neural circuits that process quantity, spatial relationships, patterns, and probabilistic reasoning automatically during routine mental activities. Research demonstrates that people unconsciously use mathematical concepts like symmetry to assess facial attractiveness, geometric principles to navigate physical spaces, and statistical reasoning to make social judgments about personality and behavior. The mathematical brain systems develop early in life and show remarkable consistency across cultures, suggesting that mathematical thinking represents fundamental aspects of human cognition rather than learned academic skills. Number sense, the intuitive understanding of quantity and numerical relationships, operates continuously during daily activities like estimating distances, comparing amounts, and timing actions, providing a mathematical foundation for more complex cognitive processes. The phenomenon extends to abstract domains where people use mathematical metaphors to understand time as linear progression, emotions as intensities that can be measured and compared, and social relationships as networks with calculable distances and connections. Individual differences in mathematical intuition correlate with performance in seemingly unrelated areas like music, language, and social cognition, suggesting that mathematical thinking provides cognitive tools that enhance multiple domains of mental function. The brain's hidden mathematics can be disrupted by various conditions, including dyscalculia, which affects numerical processing, and certain types of brain damage that impair spatial or quantitative reasoning while leaving other cognitive abilities intact. Understanding the mathematical nature of ordinary thinking has implications for education. Where connecting formal mathematics to naturally occurring mathematical cognition can enhance learning and reduce math anxiety by revealing the mathematical thinking that people already possess. Fact 33. The reality of imaginary friends. Adults regularly maintain detailed relationships with imaginary entities, including fictional characters, deceased loved ones, spiritual figures, and idealized persons who provide emotional support, guidance, and companionship through active mental simulation and conversation. These imaginary relationships activate the same neural networks involved in real social interactions, creating genuine emotional experiences and behavioral influences that can be as powerful as relationships with living people. Research shows that adults who maintain imaginary relationships report higher levels of creativity, emotional regulation, and psychological resilience, compared to those who dismiss such internal social connections as childish or abnormal. The phenomenon extends beyond obvious cases like prayer or meditation to include internal dialogues with authors while reading, conversations with role models during decision-making, and ongoing relationships with fictional characters that influence real-world choices and behaviors. Neuroimaging studies reveal that imagining social interactions activates the mentalizing network, including the medial prefrontal cortex and temporal parietal junction, suggesting that imaginary social cognition engages the same neural resources as real interpersonal processing. The quality and characteristics of imaginary relationships reflect individual personality traits, attachment styles, and social needs, with some people developing supportive internal relationships, while others may create critical or threatening imaginary figures. Therapeutic applications include using positive imaginary relationships to develop emotional skills. Practice social interactions and maintain connections with supportive figures during periods of isolation or grief. The boundary between imaginary and real relationships becomes particularly blurred in modern digital environments, where parasocial relationships with media figures, online personalities, and virtual characters can provide meaningful social experiences. Understanding imaginary relationships as legitimate social connections. Challenges. Traditional distinctions between real and fantasy social experiences, and highlights the brain's remarkable ability to generate meaningful interpersonal experiences through pure imagination. Fact 34. Your attention creates visual reality. Visual attention doesn't simply select what to look at, but actively constructs the visual world by enhancing certain features while suppressing others, meaning that different people literally see different visual realities based on their attention patterns and expectations. This constructive aspect of vision operates through top-down processing, where higher brain regions send predictions and modifications to visual cortex areas, fundamentally altering the neural representation of visual information before conscious perception occurs. Research using techniques like binocular rivalry shows that attention can determine which of two competing images becomes conscious, while the other remains completely invisible, demonstrating that awareness depends more on attention than on sensory input strength. The phenomenon explains how experts in various fields develop enhanced visual abilities in their domains, with radiologists seeing patterns in medical scans that appear invisible to novices and athletes, tracking visual information that exceeds normal human capabilities. Attention-based visual construction varies among individuals based on training, experience, cultural background, and current goals, creating personalized visual realities that can differ dramatically between people viewing identical scenes. The process extends beyond simple feature selection to include object recognition, where attention helps determine whether ambiguous visual patterns are perceived as faces, objects, or abstract shapes based on current mental state and expectations. Understanding attention-dependent vision has practical implications for user interface design, where visual elements must compete for limited attention resources and may be literally invisible if they do unmatch users' attention patterns and expectations. The discovery that attention creates visual reality challenges objective notions of perception and suggests that individual differences in attention may contribute to broader differences in how people experience and understand the world around them. Modern digital environments may be overwhelming natural attention systems that evolved for much simpler visual environments, potentially creating attention fatigue and reduced visual processing efficiency. Fact 35. The unconscious decision-making system. Major life decisions are often made unconsciously through emotional and intuitive processes that operate below awareness, with rational deliberation serving primarily to justify choices that have already been determined by unconscious mental systems. This unconscious decision-making involves the accumulation of subtle emotional signals, pattern recognition, and implicit knowledge integration that can process more complex information than conscious analysis while avoiding the limitations of working memory and cognitive overload. Research using neuroimaging techniques shows that brain activity patterns can predict decision outcomes up to 10 seconds before people report conscious awareness of their choice, suggesting that consciousness may be more of a narrator than a decision maker. The phenomenon is particularly pronounced for complex decisions involving multiple factors, uncertain outcomes, or emotional considerations, where unconscious processing can integrate information in ways that exceed conscious analytical capabilities. Unconscious decision-making draws on emotional memory systems that encode the outcomes of similar past decisions, allowing rapid evaluation of options based on learned associations rather than deliberate cost-benefit analysis. The process can be disrupted by excessive conscious deliberation, where overthinking can interfere with accurate unconscious processing and lead to poorer decision outcomes. particularly for decisions involving interpersonal relationships or creative choices. Individual differences in unconscious decision-making ability relate to intuition, emotional intelligence, and experience within specific decision domains, with experts often showing superior unconscious judgment compared to novices, who may benefit more from systematic conscious analysis. The implications extend to understanding impulse control, where seemingly irrational choices may reflect unconscious processing of information that is inaccessible to conscious awareness, but nonetheless influences behavior through emotional and motivational pathways. Recognizing the role of unconscious decision-making can improve decision strategies by allowing appropriate time for unconscious processing and learning, to distinguish between reliable intuitive signals and emotional biases that may lead to poor choices. Fact 36. Your brain's energy conservation mode. The brain automatically shifts into energy conservation modes during periods of cognitive demand or resource scarcity, reducing processing in non-essential systems to maintain function in critical areas through sophisticated neural resource management strategies. This energy conservation occurs because brain tissue consumes enormous amounts of metabolic resources, requiring efficient allocation to prevent cognitive system failure during high-demand situations. The conservation process involves reducing background neural activity, suppressing non-urgent processing, and prioritizing immediate survival-relevant functions over long-term planning, creativity, and social cognition. Research shows that glucose depletion can trigger energy conservation modes that alter personality, decision-making, and social behavior in predictable ways, with people becoming more impulsive, less empathetic, and more focused on immediate needs. The phenomenon helps explain why mental fatigue affects moral reasoning, emotional regulation, and complex problem-solving while leaving basic cognitive functions relatively intact. Energy conservation modes vary among individuals based on metabolic efficiency, cognitive training, and stress tolerance, with some people maintaining broader cognitive function under resource limitation, while others show more dramatic changes. The brain's energy management systems can be trained through practices like meditation, physical exercise, and cognitive challenges that improve metabolic efficiency and expand the resource pool available for mental activities. Understanding energy conservation has practical implications for workplace productivity, educational performance, and mental health interventions where managing cognitive load and providing appropriate rest can optimize psychological functioning. The discovery that the brain operates under energy constraints challenges unlimited capacity models of cognition and highlights the importance of considering metabolic factors in understanding human behavior and mental performance. Modern environments may be creating chronic energy conservation states through constant stimulation and decision demands that exceed the brain's evolved capacity for sustained, high-level cognitive function. Fact 37. The invisible social hierarchy scanner. Humans automatically assess social hierarchies within seconds of encountering new groups, unconsciously analyzing status markers, behavioral cues, and interpersonal dynamics to determine ranking systems and position themselves appropriately within social structures. This rapid hierarchy detection evolved because understanding social rank was crucial for survival, resource access, and reproductive success in ancestral group living environments where misreading social structure could have serious consequences. The neural systems responsible for hierarchy processing include the anterior cingulate cortex and striatum, which respond differently to high-status versus low-status individuals and guide behavioral adaptations based on perceived social position. Research demonstrates that people adjust their posture, vocal patterns, eye contact, and spatial positioning automatically based on unconscious hierarchy assessments, often without any awareness that their behavior has changed in response to social status cues. The hierarchy scanning process analyzes multiple information sources simultaneously, including clothing, speech patterns, body language, group position, and others' deference behaviors to construct rapid social maps that influence subsequent interactions. Individual differences in hierarchy sensitivity relate to personality traits, cultural background, and social experience. with some people showing heightened status awareness, while others demonstrate reduced sensitivity to hierarchical cues. The automatic nature of hierarchy detection can create problems in egalitarian settings where conscious values conflict with unconscious social processing, leading to unintended bias and differential treatment based on perceived status rather than actual merit or relevance. Understanding hierarchy scanning helps explain workplace dynamics, group formation, and social anxiety, where fear of low-status positioning can create stress and behavioral changes that affect performance and social relationships. The phenomenon suggests that truly egalitarian social environments may require conscious effort to override automatic hierarchy detection systems that operate continuously and influence behavior through unconscious social positioning mechanisms. Fact 38. Your memory palace has secret rooms. The brain maintains hidden memory storage systems that preserve experiences and information outside conscious awareness, creating vast repositories of knowledge and emotional associations that influence behavior without ever becoming consciously accessible. These unconscious memory systems include implicit learning networks that acquire complex skills and patterns through repetition, emotional memory systems that store feeling states associated with past experiences, and procedural memory networks that maintain behavioral sequences and motor skills. Research using subliminal learning paradigms shows that people can acquire substantial knowledge and behavioral modifications through unconscious exposure, with learning occurring even when individuals remain completely unaware of the information, source, or content. The hidden memory systems often show greater persistence than conscious memories, with unconscious learning sometimes lasting longer and showing more resistance to forgetting than deliberately acquired information. These secret memory rooms can be accessed indirectly through priming techniques, where exposure to related cues can activate unconscious memories and influence current thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without conscious recognition of the memory source. The phenomenon has important implications for understanding trauma, where painful experiences may be stored in unconscious memory systems that continue to influence behavior and emotional responses despite conscious efforts to forget or move past the events. Individual differences in unconscious memory capacity and accessibility relate to personality traits, cognitive styles, and developmental experiences, with some people showing greater integration between conscious and unconscious memory systems, while others maintain stronger barriers between different memory networks. Therapeutic approaches that work with unconscious memory systems can access and modify stored experiences that remain inaccessible through traditional, conscious-based interventions, offering alternative pathways for psychological healing and behavioral change. The discovery of extensive unconscious memory storage challenges models of human cognition that focus primarily on conscious awareness and highlights the importance of considering non-conscious mental processes in understanding human behavior and experience. Fact 39. The empathy overflow effect. Excessive empathy can become psychologically destructive, leading to emotional burnout, decision paralysis, and reduced helping behavior as the brain's empathy systems become overwhelmed by constant exposure to others' suffering and emotional needs. This empathy overflow occurs because neural empathy networks evolve for small social groups, where emotional sharing strengthened relationships and improved group survival. But modern environments expose individuals to unlimited suffering through media, social networks, and global awareness. The phenomenon manifests as compassion fatigue in helping professions, where healthcare workers, therapists, and social workers experience decreased empathy and increased cynicism as protective mechanisms against emotional overload. Research shows that empathy overflow can impair judgment and decision-making, as emotional reactions to individual cases can override rational analysis of broader patterns and optimal resource allocation strategies. The brain responds to empathy overflow by developing emotional numbing mechanisms that reduce sensitivity to others' pain, potentially leading to decreased prosocial behavior and interpersonal coldness that serves as psychological protection. Individual differences in empathy, overflow susceptibility relate to emotional regulation abilities, boundary setting skills, and personal trauma history, with some people showing greater resilience, while others become quickly overwhelmed by empathic demands. The phenomenon helps explain why exposure to extensive suffering, whether through work or media consumption, can paradoxically reduce charitable behavior and social activism as people become emotionally exhausted and withdraw from helping activities. Understanding empathy overflow has practical implications for designing sustainable helping systems, managing emotional labor in relationships, and creating media environments that inform without overwhelming viewers' empathic capacities. The discovery that empathy has limits challenges cultural narratives that promote unlimited emotional openness and highlights the importance of empathy regulation as a crucial life skill for maintaining psychological health and sustained helping behavior. Fact 40. Your brain's time perception dial. The subjective experience of time can be consciously manipulated through attention, motion, and mental state changes, with the brain containing adjustable time perception systems that dramatically alter how quickly or slowly moments seem to pass. This temporal flexibility evolved because accurate time perception was crucial for survival activities like predicting predator movements, coordinating group activities, and timing seasonal changes. But the systems remain malleable and responsive to current psychological conditions. Research demonstrates that time perception changes predictably based on arousal level, with high arousal states like fear or excitement, causing time to feel slower as the brain increases processing resolution to capture more detail during critical moments. The phenomenon explains why dangerous situations often feel like slow-motion experiences, where individuals report enhanced awareness and extended subjective time during brief objective periods. Attention plays a crucial role in time perception, with focused attention causing time to pass more slowly, while distracted or absorbed states can make hours feel like minutes through reduced temporal monitoring and increased flow experiences. Age-related changes in time perception occur as neural processing speed changes and life experience provides more reference points for comparing current experiences to past events, leading to the common experience that time seems to accelerate with age. Individual differences in time perception relate to personality traits, cultural background, and cognitive styles, with some people naturally experiencing time as moving faster or slower than others based on differences in neural timing mechanisms. The discovery that time perception is malleable has practical applications for pain management, where distraction techniques can alter temporal experience and reduce suffering, and for optimizing experiences where manipulating time perception can enhance enjoyment or performance. Understanding temporal perception flexibility challenges objective notions of time and reveals how psychological states fundamentally alter the subjective experience of reality through changes in neural processing dynamics. Fact 41. The phantom phone phenomenon. Modern humans have developed a new form of hallucination called phantom phone syndrome, where people regularly hear their phones ringing or feel them vibrating when no notification has occurred, revealing how rapidly technology can rewire fundamental neural pathways. This phenomenon affects over 80% of smartphone users and demonstrates the brain's remarkable plasticity in adapting to new environmental demands while also showing the costs of constant connectivity expectations. The phantom sensations occur because the nervous system becomes hypervigilant to phone signals, lowering detection thresholds to prevent missing important communications, while simultaneously generating false positives when the brain misinterprets random neural activity as phone notifications. Research shows that phantom phone experiences intensify during periods of high stress or social anticipation, suggesting that emotional state modulates the brain's tendency to generate false sensory experiences when expecting meaningful communications. The phenomenon extends beyond simple hallucinations to include changes in attention patterns, where people show increased distractibility and difficulty maintaining focus due to constant background monitoring for potential phone signals. Neuroplasticity studies reveal that heavy phone use can alter brain structure, particularly in regions responsible for attention control and sensory processing, creating lasting changes that persist even during phone-free periods. The phantom phone effect varies among individuals based on attachment style, social anxiety levels, and communication patterns, with people who fear social rejection or missing important information showing stronger phantom sensations. Understanding this technology-induced neurological change has implications for digital wellness, workplace productivity, and mental health interventions designed to help people develop healthier relationships with communication technology. The rapid emergence of phantom phone syndrome demonstrates how quickly human neurology can adapt to technological environments, raising questions about other subtle but potentially significant changes occurring as society becomes increasingly digitized. Fact 42. Your brain's prediction error marketplace. The brain operates an internal economy where prediction errors serve as currency, with neural systems trading information and resources based on how well different brain regions can predict and explain incoming sensory information. This prediction marketplace involves constant competition between different neural networks, with successful prediction systems gaining more influence over behavior and perception, while poorly performing systems receive reduced resources and attention. The phenomenon occurs because the brain's primary function involves generating accurate predictions about future states to enable effective action and survival, making prediction accuracy the fundamental measure of neural success and resource allocation. Research using computational modeling shows that the brain's prediction systems constantly update their models based on error feedback, with regions that consistently generate accurate predictions receiving stronger connections and increased processing power. The prediction marketplace helps explain how expertise develops. Neural systems specialized for particular domains gradually outcompete more general systems through superior performance in specific prediction tasks. Individual differences in prediction market efficiency relate to learning abilities, adaptability, and cognitive flexibility, with some people showing more effective resource allocation. Between competing neural prediction systems, the phenomenon has implications for understanding mental disorders where prediction systems may become dysregulated, leading to false beliefs, hallucinations, or inability to update mental models based on new information. The brain's prediction marketplace also explains how habits form and persist. As successful behavioral prediction systems can dominate decision-making even when conscious goals conflict with habitual patterns. Understanding this internal neural economy provides insights into optimizing learning, breaking unwanted habits, and developing more effective therapeutic interventions that work with rather than against the brain's natural prediction-based resource allocation systems. The discovery of prediction-based neural economics reveals that the brain operates more like a competitive marketplace than a unified processing system. Fact 43. The social thermostat affects humans. Unconsciously regulate the emotional temperature of social interactions through subtle behavioral adjustments, automatically increasing warmth during cold social exchanges and reducing intensity during overly heated interpersonal encounters. This social thermostat operates through rapid assessment of emotional cues, including facial expressions, vocal tones, body language, and interpersonal distance, followed by automatic behavioral modifications designed to maintain optimal social conditions. The phenomenon evolved because successful group living required maintaining social harmony and preventing both interpersonal coldness that could lead to isolation and excessive emotional intensity that might cause conflict or group dissolution. Research demonstrates that people automatically mirror and complement others' emotional expressions, with neural systems detecting emotional imbalances and generating compensatory responses within milliseconds of social contact. The social thermostat functions differently across cultures, with collectivistic societies showing stronger automatic emotional regulation as compared to individualistic cultures where emotional expression may be more direct and less modulated by social harmony concerns. Individual differences in social thermostat sensitivity relate to empathy levels, social anxiety, and relationship experience. with some people showing highly responsive emotional regulation, while others maintain more consistent emotional expression regardless of social context. The phenomenon can malfunction in various ways, including overregulation, where people suppress authentic emotional expression to maintain social harmony, or underregulation, where emotional responses remain unchanged despite inappropriate social contexts. Understanding social emotional regulation has practical applications for improving interpersonal relationships, managing workplace dynamics, and treating social anxiety, where excessive concern about emotional appropriateness can interfere with natural social interactions. The social thermostat effect reveals that individual emotional expression occurs within complex interpersonal feedback systems, where personal feelings interact continuously with social environmental demands. Modern communication technologies may be disrupting natural social thermostat functions by reducing access to subtle emotional cause. Emotional word stay cues that guide automatic interpersonal regulation processes. Fact 44. Your memory has an expiration date system. The brain uses sophisticated algorithms to determine which memories should be preserved long-term versus which should be allowed to fade, operating like an internal filing system that actively decides what information deserves permanent storage versus temporary retention. This memory management system evaluates multiple factors, including emotional significance, repetition frequency, social relevance, and survival importance to determine memory longevity through neurochemical tagging processes. The expiration system involves interactions between the hippocampus, which initially processes new memories, and the prefrontal cortex, which evaluates their importance for future behavior and goal achievement. Research shows that memories tagged as important receive preferential consolidation during sleep, while unmarked memories become increasingly vulnerable to forgetting through natural decay processes and interference from new learning. The phenomenon explains why emotionally significant events create lasting memories, while routine daily activities fade quickly, and why information that connects to existing knowledge or future goals shows enhanced retention compared to isolated facts. Individual differences in memory management relate to personality traits, cognitive abilities, and life experiences, with some people showing more selective memory retention, while others maintain broader but potentially less detailed memory storage. The memory expiration system can be influenced by various factors, including stress levels, which can alter memory tagging processes, and attention patterns, which help determine which experiences receive memory consolidation resources. Understanding memory management has practical applications for education, where connecting new information to existing knowledge and future goals can improve retention, and for treating traumatic memories where normal expiration processes may be disrupted. The discovery that memory storage involves active curation rather than passive recording challenges assumptions about forgetting as failure, and reveals it as an adaptive process that prevents cognitive overload while preserving important information. Fact 45. The invisible social force field. Humans maintain unconscious personal space boundaries that extend beyond physical proximity to include invisible social force fields affecting comfort, behavior, and interpersonal dynamics across various interaction contexts. These social force fields operate through neural systems that continuously monitor interpersonal distance, social status differences, cultural norms, and emotional relationships to determine appropriate interaction, boundaries, and behavioral responses. The phenomenon involves the parietal cortex and other spatial processing regions that create mental maps of social space similar to physical space navigation, with violations of social boundaries triggering discomfort and defensive responses. Research demonstrates that personal space boundaries vary systematically based on relationship type, cultural background, personality traits, and current emotional state, with intimate relationships allowing closer social proximity while formal relationships maintain larger interpersonal distances. The social force field effect extends beyond physical space to include conversational territory, where people unconsciously maintain boundaries around topics, emotional intensity levels, and disclosure appropriateness based on relationship context and social norms. Individual differences in social force field sensitivity relate to social anxiety, autism spectrum traits, and cultural background, with some people requiring larger social buffers, while others feel comfortable with closer interpersonal proximity across various relationships. The invisible force fields can be disrupted by various factors, including alcohol consumption, which reduces social boundary monitoring, and certain mental health conditions that impair social distance regulation. Understanding social force fields has practical applications for architecture and urban planning, where physical space design can support or interfere with natural social boundary maintenance and interpersonal comfort. The discovery of unconscious social force fields reveals that human social interaction occurs within complex spatial frameworks that operate below conscious awareness, but significantly influence behavioral patterns and relationship dynamics. Fact 46. Your brain's emotional time machine. Emotional memories can transport consciousness backward through time with such vividness that past emotional states become temporarily reactivated in the present, creating genuine re-experiencing rather than simple recollection of previous feelings and situations. This emotional time travel occurs through direct neural reactivation of the same brain networks that were active during the original emotional experience, essentially replaying past psychological states with remarkable fidelity. The phenomena involves the amygdala and hippocampus working together to reconstruct not just the factual content of memories, but also the complete emotional and physiological context that accompanied the original experience. Research using neuroimaging shows that recalling emotional memories activates nearly identical brain patterns to those recorded during the initial experience, suggesting that emotional memory involves genuine re-experiencing rather than abstract representation of past feelings. The emotional time machine effect explains why traumatic memories can feel as threatening and immediate as current dangers, and why positive memories can provide genuine comfort and joy that transcends simple cognitive recollection. Individual differences in emotional time travel ability relate to empathy levels, imagination capacity, and emotional regulation skills, with some people showing more vivid emotional re-experiencing while others maintain clearer boundaries between past and present emotional states. The phenomenon can become problematic when past emotional number 100 weird psychology facts you've never heard before. Fact 47. The attention residue phenomenon. When switching between tasks or mental activities, fragments of attention remain stuck on previous activities for extended periods, creating attention residue that impairs performance on subsequent tasks, even when people believe they have completely shifted focus. This cognitive residue occurs because the brain's attention networks require time to fully disengage from complex or emotionally engaging activities, with some neural resources continuing to process previous tasks while attempting to focus on new ones. Research demonstrates that attention residue effects can persist for up to 25 minutes after task switching, with more complex or personally meaningful tasks creating stronger residual effects that interfere with subsequent cognitive performance. The phenomenon helps explain why multitasking often reduces overall productivity and increases error rates, as attention residue from interrupted tasks continues to consume mental resources and create cognitive interference. Individual differences in attention residue susceptibility relate to working memory capacity, cognitive flexibility, and task switching abilities, with some people showing greater resistance to residual effects, while others experience prolonged attention fragmentation. The effect becomes more pronounced with emotional or stressful tasks, where strong emotional engagement can create particularly persistent attention residue that continues to influence thoughts and feelings long after the original task has ended. Understanding attention residue has practical implications for workplace productivity, study strategies, and time management, where allowing transition periods between different activities can reduce cognitive interference and improve overall performance. Modern digital environments may be exacerbating attention residue problems by encouraging rapid task switching and constant interruption patterns that prevent complete attention disengagement from previous activities. The discovery of attention residue challenges assumptions about human cognitive flexibility and highlights the importance of managing attention transitions rather than simply focusing on attention allocation during active task performance. Fact 48. Your brain's social status GPS. The human brain contains specialized neural circuits that continuously track social status relationships across multiple hierarchies simultaneously, operating like an internal GPS system that maps social landscapes and guides behavioral navigation through complex interpersonal environments. This social status tracking system involves the anterior cingulate cortex, striatum, and prefrontal regions that process dominance displays, submission signals, and hierarchical positioning within various social contexts, including work, family, and peer relationships. Research shows that social status GPS operates automatically and unconsciously, with people making rapid assessments of relative social position within seconds of encountering new social situations or meeting unfamiliar individuals. The phenomenon evolved because accurately navigating social hierarchies was crucial for accessing resources, avoiding conflict, and maintaining group membership in ancestral environments where misreading social status could have serious survival consequences. The social GPS system influences behavior through automatic adjustments in posture, vocal patterns, eye contact, and spatial positioning based on perceived status relationships, often without conscious awareness that behavioral changes are occurring. Individual differences in social status sensitivity relate to personality traits, cultural background, and early social experiences, with some people showing heightened status awareness, while others demonstrate reduced sensitivity to hierarchical cues. The system can malfunction in various ways, including excessive status anxiety, where constant social comparison creates stress and interferes with authentic self-expression, or status blindness, where failure to recognize important hierarchical relationships leads to social difficulties. Understanding social status GPS has implications for workplace dynamics, educational environments, and therapeutic interventions where status-related stress can contribute to anxiety, depression, and interpersonal problems. The discovery of automatic status tracking reveals that human social cognition operates within complex, hierarchical frameworks that continuously influence behavior and emotional experience through unconscious social positioning mechanisms. Fact 49. The memory consolidation traffic controller during sleep. The brain operates a sophisticated traffic control system that determines which memories get transferred from temporary storage to permanent archives, with specific neural mechanisms directing the flow of information between different memory systems. This consolidation traffic controller involves the hippocampus acting as a temporary holding area, while the neocortex serves as long-term storage, with sleep-dependent processes determining which memories make the transition based on importance, emotional significance, and relevance to future goals. Research using sleep monitoring shows that different types of memories undergo consolidation during specific sleep stages, with declarative memories processing during slow-wave sleep, while procedural memories consolidate during REM sleep through distinct neural replay mechanisms. The traffic control system prioritizes emotionally significant events, novel information that doesn't fit existing knowledge structures, and memories that connect to important personal goals or survival-relevant information. Individual differences in memory consolidation efficiency relate to sleep quality, age, stress levels, and genetic factors that influence sleep architecture and neural plasticity, with some people showing more effective memory traffic control, while others experience consolidation difficulties. The phenomenon explains why sleep deprivation impairs not just current cognitive function, but also long-term learning and memory formation, as disrupted sleep interferes with the natural memory traffic control processes that occur during rest periods. Understanding memory consolidation has practical applications for optimizing learning strategies. treating memory disorders and improving educational outcomes by working with rather than against natural memory traffic patterns. The discovery of active memory traffic control during sleep challenges passive models of memory formation and reveals that forgetting represents an active process where unimportant information gets filtered out rather than simply decaying through disuse. Fact 50. Your brain's empathy circuit breaker. The human empathy system includes built-in circuit breakers that automatically shut down emotional connection when empathic demands become overwhelming, protecting psychological well-being through emotional numbing. Mechanisms that can activate without conscious awareness or control. This empathy regulation occurs because unlimited emotional connection would be psychologically destructive. In environments with extensive suffering or emotional demands that exceed individual coping capacity, the circuit breaker system involves interactions between the anterior cingulate cortex, which processes emotional pain, and prefrontal regions that monitor empathic load and trigger protective responses when emotional engagement reaches dangerous levels. Research demonstrates that empathy circuit breakers can activate in response to repetitive exposure to others' pain, overwhelming emotional demands from multiple sources, or personal stress that reduces available emotional resources for connecting with others. The phenomenon manifests as gradual emotional distancing, reduced concern for others' welfare, and decreased motivation to help, representing adaptive protection mechanisms rather than callousness or moral failure. Individual differences in empathy circuit breaker thresholds relate to emotional regulation abilities, stress tolerance, and personal trauma history, with some people maintaining empathic connection under extreme conditions, while others require protection from moderate emotional demands. The circuit breaker effect helps explain compassion fatigue in helping professions, emotional burnout in caregiving relationships, and psychological numbing responses to traumatic events where empathy becomes temporarily inaccessible. Understanding empathy regulation has therapeutic implications for treating conditions involving excessive emotional sensitivity, managing caregiver stress, and developing sustainable approaches to helping behavior that prevent empathic burnout. The discovery of automatic empathy protection mechanisms reveals that emotional connection operates within biological limits that must be respected to maintain psychological health and sustained caring capacity over time. Fact 51. The invisible social synchrony network. Humans unconsciously coordinate their movements, breathing patterns, heart rates, and brain waves with others during social interactions, creating invisible synchrony networks that bind groups together through shared physiological rhythms. This social synchronization occurs automatically during conversations, group activities, and even passive co-presence, with multiple biological systems aligning to create interpersonal harmony at physiological levels. Research using simultaneous monitoring of multiple individuals shows that heart rate variability, breathing patterns, and neural oscillations become coordinated during meaningful social interactions, with stronger synchrony correlating with better communication and relationship satisfaction. The phenomenon involves mirror neuron systems, autonomic nervous system responses, and neural entrainment mechanisms that allow individual biological rhythms to become mutually influenced and aligned during social contact. Social synchrony operates differently across relationship types, with closer relationships showing stronger physiological coordination, while formal or conflictual relationships may show reduced or misaligned biological rhythms. The invisible synchrony network helps explain why some social interactions feel energizing and harmonious, while others feel draining or awkward, as physiological alignment or misalignment creates subliminal comfort or discomfort during interpersonal encounters. Individual differences in synchrony capacity relate to empathy levels, social skills, and autonomic nervous system sensitivity, with some people showing natural ability to entrain with others, while others maintain more independent biological rhythms. Understanding social synchrony has applications for team building, therapeutic relationships, and educational environments where creating physiological harmony can enhance cooperation and learning outcomes. The phenomenon suggests that social connection involves much deeper biological integration than previously recognized, with successful relationships requiring not just psychological compatibility, but also physiological coordination that occurs largely outside conscious awareness. Fact 52. Your brain's reality quality controller. The brain employs sophisticated quality control mechanisms that continuously monitor the believability and consistency of conscious experiences, flagging unusual or impossible events as potentially unreal while allowing plausible experiences to pass as genuine reality. This reality monitoring system involves the prefrontal cortex and temporal lobes working together to compare incoming experiences against stored knowledge about how the world typically operates, creating confidence ratings for different aspects of conscious experience. Research shows that reality monitoring can be fooled by sufficiently realistic simulations, virtual environments, and imagined experiences that contain appropriate sensory details and logical consistency, revealing that the brain's reality detection depends on pattern matching rather than direct access to objective truth. The quality control system operates continuously during waking consciousness, but becomes less active during dreams, allowing impossible and illogical experiences to feel completely real until waking reality monitoring systems come back online. Individual differences in reality monitoring efficiency relate to cognitive abilities, mental health status, and susceptibility to various illusions, with some people showing stronger reality testing while others may experience more difficulty distinguishing between real and imagined experiences. The phenomenon has implications for understanding conditions like psychosis, where reality monitoring systems may become impaired, allowing false beliefs and hallucinations to pass quality control checks and feel genuinely real to the individual. Modern virtual and augmented reality technologies challenge natural reality monitoring systems. By creating increasingly convincing artificial experiences that can temporarily fool quality control mechanisms. Understanding reality monitoring helps explain how false memories can feel completely real, why eyewitness testimony can be confidently inaccurate, and how therapeutic interventions might help people distinguish between realistic and unrealistic thoughts and fears. Fact 53. The emotional immune system. Humans possess an emotional immune system that automatically detects and neutralizes psychological threats before they can cause lasting damage, operating through unconscious defense mechanisms that protect mental well-being without conscious intervention or awareness. This psychological protection system includes automatic processes like rationalization, attention deflection, memory modification, and emotional numbing that activate when experiences threaten core beliefs, self-worth, or psychological stability. Research demonstrates that the emotional immune system operates with remarkable sophistication, selectively protecting against specific types of psychological threats, while allowing beneficial but challenging experiences to promote growth and learning. The phenomenon involves interactions between multiple brain regions, including the anterior cingulate cortex, which monitors for psychological threats, and prefrontal areas that coordinate defensive responses through cognitive and emotional regulation mechanisms. Individual differences in emotional immune function relate to resilience, coping strategies, and early developmental experiences, with some people developing robust psychological protection, while others may have underactive or overactive emotional immune responses. The emotional immune system can sometimes interfere with accurate reality perception by filtering out information that threatens psychological well-being, potentially creating blind spots in self-knowledge and relationship understanding. Understanding emotional immunity has implications for therapy, where interventions must work with, rather than against, natural protective mechanisms, and for personal growth, where recognizing immune responses can help individuals distinguish between realistic threats and automatic defensive reactions. The system demonstrates that psychological well-being involves active maintenance through continuous threat detection and neutralization, rather than simple absence of negative experiences. Modern environments may challenge emotional, immune systems with unprecedented types and levels of psychological stress that exceed evolutionary adaptive capacity. Fact 54. Your brain's temporal illusion generator, the brain, creates seamless temporal illusions that make discontinuous experiences feel continuous, filling in gaps in consciousness, and creating false impressions of uninterrupted awareness during events like eye movements, tension shifts, and brief distractions. These temporal construction processes operate automatically to maintain the subjective experience of continuous consciousness, despite the fact that awareness actually involves frequent interruptions and gaps in processing. The illusion generation system involves the parietal cortex and prefrontal regions that monitor temporal sequences and reconstruct missing information using prediction and interpolation mechanisms that create plausible continuity between disconnected moments. Research using precise timing measurements reveals that people regularly fail to notice brief interruptions in visual scenes, auditory streams, and conscious experience, with the brain automatically filling in missing information to maintain temporal coherence. The phenomenon explains why magic tricks can be so effective, as temporal illusions allow impossible events to seem continuous and logical by hiding crucial moments when changes actually occur. Individual differences in temporal illusion susceptibility relate to attention abilities, working memory capacity, and metacognitive awareness, with some people showing greater sensitivity to temporal discontinuities, while others accept reconstructed continuity without question. The temporal illusion generator has practical implications for understanding eyewitness testimony, where gaps in attention can be unconsciously filled with plausible but inaccurate information, and for designing user interfaces that work with natural temporal processing limitations. Understanding temporal illusions challenges assumptions about the continuity of consciousness and reveals that subjective experience involves much more active construction than passive observation of ongoing events. The system demonstrates how the brain prioritizes coherent narrative experience over accurate temporal perception, potentially creating false confidence in the completeness and accuracy of conscious awareness. Fact 55. The social comparison autopilot. Humans automatically compare themselves to others across multiple dimensions simultaneously, with the brain running constant background processes that evaluate relative status, abilities, attractiveness, and success levels without conscious initiation or control. This social comparison autopilot operates through specialized neural networks that process social information and generate comparative assessments within milliseconds of encountering other people, even when comparison is irrelevant to current goals or activities. Research demonstrates that social comparison processes are so fundamental that they continue operating even when people explicitly try to avoid comparing themselves to others, suggesting that comparative evaluation represents a core feature of human social cognition. The autopilot system influences self-esteem, motivation, and goal setting through upward comparisons that can inspire improvement efforts or create feelings of inadequacy, and downward comparisons that may enhance self-worth but potentially reduce empathy for others. Individual differences in social comparison intensity relate to personality traits, self-esteem levels, and competitive orientation, with some people showing heightened comparative processing, while others demonstrate more self-referential evaluation patterns. The phenomenon has been amplified by social media environments that provide unlimited comparison opportunities and carefully curated presentations that may trigger particularly strong comparative responses and associated emotional consequences. Understanding social comparison autopilot has implications for mental health interventions, educational strategies, and workplace design, where managing comparative environments can influence well-being and performance outcomes. The automatic nature of social comparison challenges idealistic notions about focusing solely on personal growth and reveals that individual psychology exists within fundamentally comparative frameworks that continuously influence self-perception and behavior. Fact 56. Your brain's pattern completion addiction. The human brain experiences genuine pleasure from completing patterns and solving puzzles, with neural reward systems becoming active when fragmented information gets organized into coherent wholes through pattern recognition and completion processes. This pattern completion addiction involves dopamine release in the striatum and activation of reward circuits that make successful pattern completion intrinsically motivating and potentially addictive, explaining human fascination with puzzles, games, and mystery-solving activities. Research shows that the brain automatically attempts to complete partial patterns, even when completion serves no practical purpose, suggesting that pattern processing represents a fundamental drive rather than simply a tool for understanding the environment. The phenomenon extends beyond visual patterns to include narrative completion, where people feel compelled to learn story endings, and social pattern completion, where individuals seek to understand relationship dynamics and interpersonal situations. Individual differences in pattern completion drive relate to personality traits like openness to experience and need for cognitive closure, with some people showing stronger motivation to complete patterns while others tolerate ambiguity and incompleteness more easily. The pattern completion system can become problematic when applied to situations that lack inherent patterns, leading to false pattern detection, conspiracy theories, and superstitious behavior as the brain attempts to impose order on random events. Understanding pattern completion addiction has practical applications for education, where learning activities that leverage natural completion drives can enhance motivation and engagement, and for therapeutic interventions that help people distinguish between meaningful patterns and random coincidences. The discovery of pattern completion as a reward-driven process reveals that human cognition involves active pleasure-seeking through intellectual organization rather than passive information processing. Modern digital environments may be exploiting pattern completion drives through games and applications, designed to trigger completion satisfaction, while potentially interfering with more important pattern recognition activities. Fact 57. The invisible emotional contagion. Network emotions spread through groups following predictable transmission patterns similar to infectious diseases, with specific emotions showing different contagion rates, transmission pathways, and resistance factors that determine how emotional states propagate through social networks. This emotional contagion occurs through multiple mechanisms, including unconscious facial mimicry, vocal tone matching, physiological synchronization, paired attention patterns that allow emotional states to transfer between individuals without conscious awareness or intention. Research tracking large social groups reveals that happiness spreads more slowly but persists longer than negative emotions, while anger and fear show rapid transmission but shorter duration, creating distinct emotional epidemic patterns within communities. The contagion network involves mirror neuron systems that automatically simulate others, emotional expressions, and limbic structures that generate corresponding feeling states, creating genuine emotional experiences rather than simply cognitive understanding of others' feelings. Individual differences in emotional contagion susceptibility relate to empathy levels, social sensitivity, and boundary-setting abilities, with highly empathetic individuals serving as both receivers and transmitters, while others may show natural immunity to emotional influence. The phenomenon helps explain how workplace moods develop, family emotional climates emerge, and community-wide emotional patterns spread through social media and mass communication channels. Understanding emotional contagion networks has practical applications for team management, organizational culture development, and community mental health interventions where targeting influential individuals can create positive emotional changes that ripple throughout social systems. The discovery of predictable emotional transmission patterns challenges individual models of emotion and reveals that emotional experience occurs within complex social epidemiological frameworks that continuously influence personal feeling states. Fact 58. Your memory has a forgery department. The brain contains specialized systems for creating false memories that feel completely genuine and indistinguishable from real recollections, operating through the same neural networks responsible for authentic memory formation while bypassing normal verification processes. This memory forgery department can generate detailed false memories through suggestion, imagination, dreaming, and confabulation processes that insert fictional events into personal history with full subjective conviction and emotional authenticity. Research using controlled false memory implantation shows that people can develop vivid recollections of events that never occurred, complete with sensory details, emotional associations, and confident certainty that matches genuine autobiographical memories. The forgery system evolved because memory serves adaptive functions like learning and planning rather than historical accuracy, making flexible memory modification more important than precise recording of past events for survival and behavioral adaptation. False memory creation involves the hippocampus and associated temporal lobe structures working in imagination mode rather than recall mode, generating new experiences that get tagged as memories through the same consolidation processes used for actual events. Individual differences in false memory susceptibility relate to imagination abilities, suggestibility levels, and source monitoring skills, with some people showing greater resistance to memory implantation, while others readily accept suggested experiences as personal history. The phenomenon has serious implications for legal proceedings, therapeutic interventions, and personal relationships where false memories can create genuine conviction about events that never occurred, leading to real-world consequences based on fictional recollections. Understanding memory forgery helps explain how family stories can become personal memories, how therapeutic suggestions can create false trauma memories, and how social influence can modify personal history without conscious awareness of the alteration process. Fact 59. The attention spotlight's peripheral vision. While conscious attention operates like a focused spotlight, illuminating specific information, the brain simultaneously monitors the entire perceptual field through peripheral processing systems that can detect important information outside the attention focus and redirect awareness when necessary. This peripheral attention system operates automatically and continuously, scanning for threats, opportunities, social cues, and personally relevant information while the conscious spotlight focuses elsewhere, creating a comprehensive surveillance network that operates largely outside awareness. Research demonstrates that peripheral processing can influence behavior and emotional responses, even when people remain completely unaware of the information being processed, suggesting that much human behavior is guided by information never entering conscious awareness. The phenomenon involves multiple brain regions, including the superior colliculus for spatial monitoring, amygdala for threat detection, and temporal regions for social information processing, creating overlapping surveillance systems that operate independently of conscious attention direction. Individual differences in peripheral processing efficiency relate to anxiety levels, attention abilities, and environmental sensitivity, with some people showing heightened peripheral awareness while others demonstrate more focused but potentially less flexible attention patterns. The peripheral vision system can become dysregulated in various conditions, including anxiety disorders where threat monitoring becomes excessive, and attention deficit disorders where peripheral distractibility interferes with focused attention maintenance. Understanding peripheral attention has practical applications for user interface design, where important information must be detectable by peripheral processing systems, and for therapeutic interventions that help people manage excessive peripheral monitoring or develop better awareness of peripheral information sources. The discovery of sophisticated peripheral processing challenges spotlight models of attention and reveals that human awareness operates through multiple simultaneous information processing systems rather than singular focused attention mechanisms. Fact 60. Your brain's social role database. The human brain maintains an extensive database of social roles and behavioral scripts, automatically switching between different personality patterns based on social context while maintaining the subjective illusion of consistent identity across situations. This social role system involves prefrontal cortex regions that store behavioral patterns associated with different social contexts and can rapidly shift personality expression based on environmental cues and relationship demands. Research shows that people display measurably different personality traits when interacting with family members versus colleagues versus strangers, with the brain automatically adjusting behavior patterns to match role expectations and social norms. The role-switching process occurs so rapidly and automatically that individuals often remain unaware of their personality changes, maintaining beliefs about consistent identity despite exhibiting significantly different behaviors across social contexts. The social role database includes not only behavioral patterns, but also emotional responses, moral standards, and communication styles that vary systematically based on role requirements and social positioning within different relationship networks. Individual differences in role flexibility relate to social skills, cultural background, and personality structure, with some people showing extensive role repertoires, while others maintain more consistent patterns across different social contexts. The phenomenon has implications for understanding identity disorders, where role switching may become problematic or dysregulated, and for therapeutic interventions that help people develop more adaptive role patterns or integrate different aspects of social identity. Understanding social role systems challenges unified models of personality and reveals that human identity involves multiple context-dependent behavioral patterns rather than single consistent personality structures. Modern environments may be creating role confusion by blending previously distinct social contexts through digital communication and changing social structures. Fact 61. The unconscious behavioral mirror system. Humans automatically mirror others' posture, facial expressions, vocal patterns, and movements during social interactions through unconscious imitation systems that operate within seconds of social contact and continue throughout interpersonal encounters. This behavioral mirroring occurs through specialized neural networks, including mirror neurons, that fire both when performing actions and when observing others perform similar actions, creating automatic behavioral synchronization that enhances communication and social bonding. Research demonstrates that behavioral mirroring increases liking, trust, and cooperation between interaction partners, with people rating others more positively when mirroring occurs naturally compared to interactions where mirroring is absent or artificially disrupted. The mirroring system operates selectively based on social goals, relationship status, and group membership, with stronger mirroring occurring between liked individuals and group members, while reduced mirroring may occur with disliked or outgroup individuals. Individual differences in mirroring tendency relate to empathy levels, social skills, and personality traits, with highly empathetic individuals showing more extensive behavioral mirroring, while others may demonstrate more independent behavioral patterns during social interactions. The unconscious nature of behavioral mirroring means that people typically remain unaware of their imitation behaviors, though conscious attempts to mirror others can sometimes enhance social rapport when used appropriately and naturally. Understanding behavioral mirroring has applications for improving social skills, enhancing therapeutic relationships, and optimizing team dynamics where mutual mirroring can create better cooperation and communication outcomes. The phenomenon suggests that successful social interaction involves much more behavioral coordination than commonly recognized, with unconscious imitations serving as a fundamental mechanism for creating interpersonal harmony and understanding. Modern digital communication may be reducing opportunities for natural behavioral mirroring, potentially affecting the quality and depth of social connections formed through technology-mediated interactions. Welcome to a journey through the hidden corners of the human mind. Today, we explore 100 fascinating psychology facts that will change how you see yourself and others. Each revelation offers a glimpse into the mysterious workings of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Let us begin this exploration into the wonderful weirdness of human psychology. Fact 62. Your brain's meaning-making machine. The human brain operates as a relentless, meaning-making machine that automatically imposes significance, purpose, and causal relationships onto random events. creating coherent narratives from disconnected experiences through sophisticated pattern detection and interpretation systems. This meaning construction process involves multiple brain regions, including the left hemisphere interpreter system that generates explanatory stories for experiences, emotions, and behaviors, even when no logical connections actually exist. Research demonstrates that people will create elaborate explanations for random events, coincidental occurrences, and meaningless sequences while maintaining complete confidence in their interpretations. Despite the absence of genuine causal relationships, the meaning-making system evolved because detecting patterns and understanding cause and effect relationships was crucial for survival, making it adaptive to err on the side of finding meaning rather than missing important connections in the environment. The process operates continuously and automatically, with individuals typically unaware that they are actively constructing, rather than simply discovering meaning in their experiences and observations. Individual differences in meaning-making intensity relate to personality traits, cognitive styles, and cultural backgrounds, with some people showing stronger needs for significance and purpose, while others tolerate ambiguity and randomness more comfortably. The meaning-making machine can become problematic when applied to genuinely random or meaningless events, potentially leading to superstitious beliefs, conspiracy theories, and false pattern detection that creates anxiety and maladaptive behaviors. Understanding meaning construction has therapeutic implications for treating conditions where excessive meaning-making creates distress, such as when people blame themselves for random negative events or find threatening significance in neutral circumstances. The discovery that humans actively construct rather than passively discover meaning challenges objective notions of significance and reveals that personal understanding of life events involves substantial interpretation and narrative creation rather than simple fact recognition. Fact 63. The invisible social influence network. Human behavior is constantly influenced by subtle social cues that operate below conscious awareness, including environmental factors like cleanliness levels, lighting conditions, spatial arrangements, and social symbols that trigger predictable behavioral changes without explicit recognition. This invisible influence network operates through automatic social cognition processes that evolve to help individuals adapt quickly to different social environments by detecting contextual cues and adjusting behavior accordingly. Research shows that exposure to achievement-related words can improve performance on subsequent tasks. Elderly-related concepts can slow walking speed, and cleanliness cues can increase moral behavior, all without conscious awareness of the influence process. The phenomenon involves priming mechanisms where environmental stimuli activate associated mental concepts and behavioral patterns, creating cascading effects on thoughts, feelings, and actions that can persist for hours after initial exposure. Individual differences in social influence susceptibility relate to cognitive control abilities, social sensitivity, and current mental state, with some people showing greater responsiveness to environmental cues, while others maintain more stable behavioral patterns across contexts. The invisible influence network helps explain why environmental design affects behavior in settings like hospitals, schools, and workplaces, where subtle contextual factors can influence healing, learning, and productivity through unconscious behavioral modification. Understanding social influence has practical applications for creating environments that promote desired behaviors, designing interventions that work with rather than against automatic influence processes, and developing awareness of how environmental factors shape personal choices and actions. The discovery of extensive unconscious social influence challenges notions of individual autonomy and reveals that human behavior occurs within complex environmental influence systems that operate largely outside conscious awareness and control. Fact 64. Your memory palace has moving walls. Memories are not fixed recordings, but dynamic reconstructions that change based on current context, emotional state, and subsequent experiences. with memory networks continuously updating and modifying stored information to maintain relevance and coherence with evolving life circumstances. This memory plasticity involves active neural processes that can strengthen, weaken, combine, or separate different memory components based on their current utility and emotional significance, creating memories that adapt over time rather than remaining static historical records. Research demonstrates that each time a memory is recalled, it becomes temporarily unstable and subject to modification by current thoughts, feelings, and environmental factors before being reconsolidated in potentially altered form. The moving walls phenomenon helps explain why different family members can have dramatically different recollections of shared experiences, and why personal memories often drift toward consistency with current beliefs and self-concept over time. Memory modification serves adaptive functions by allowing past experiences to be updated with new knowledge, integrated with current understanding, and adjusted to maintain psychological coherence and mental health. Individual differences in memory plasticity relate to personality traits, cognitive abilities, and emotional regulation styles, with some people showing more stable memories while others demonstrate greater flexibility in memory updating and modification. The phenomenon has implications for understanding therapeutic change, where modifying traumatic memories can reduce their emotional impact, and for legal proceedings, where witness testimony may be sincerely believed but systematically inaccurate due to natural memory modification processes. Understanding memory plasticity challenges fixed models of personal history and reveals that individual identity involves continuous reconstruction of past experiences rather than simple retrieval of unchanging autobiographical records. Modern environments with extensive information exposure may be accelerating memory modification processes through increased opportunities for memory updating and interference. Fact 65. The emotional thermostat malfunction. Emotional regulation systems can become dysregulated in ways that create persistent mood states disconnected from environmental circumstances, operating like broken thermostats that maintain inappropriate emotional temperatures, regardless of actual life conditions. This emotional thermostat malfunction involves disruptions in neural circuits responsible for monitoring and adjusting emotional responses, including connections between prefrontal control regions and limbic, emotional centers that normally maintain appropriate emotional range and responsiveness. Research shows that some individuals develop emotional set points that become stuck in particular ranges, creating chronic depression, where positive events fail to improve mood, or chronic anxiety, where safe situations continue to feel threatening. The malfunction can manifest as emotional numbness, where normal life events fail to generate appropriate emotional responses, or as emotional hypersensitivity, where minor events trigger intense emotional reactions that exceed situational demands. Individual differences in thermostat functioning relate to genetic factors, early developmental experiences, and stress exposure, with some people maintaining flexible emotional responsiveness, while others develop rigid patterns that resist environmental influence. The phenomenon helps explain why traditional therapy approaches that focus on changing life circumstances may be ineffective for individuals with thermostat malfunctions, to require interventions that directly address emotional regulation systems rather than external factors. Understanding emotional thermostat problems has implications for treating mood disorders, where medications and therapies that reset emotional regulation systems may be more effective than approaches that assume emotions will respond normally to environmental changes. The discovery of emotional regulation malfunctions reveals that mental health involves complex biological systems that can develop persistent dysfunctions requiring systematic intervention rather than simple environmental or cognitive modifications. Fact 66. Your brain's social reality generator. The human brain actively constructs social reality through shared meaning-making processes that create collective understanding. Cultural norms and social institutions that exist primarily in the psychological realm rather than objective physical reality. This social reality generation involves sophisticated neural systems that coordinate individual minds to create shared beliefs, values, and behavioral expectations that become genuine psychological forces influencing behavior and experience. Research demonstrates that social realities like money, laws, organizations, and cultural practices derive their power entirely from collective belief and agreement, existing only as long as groups of people continue to accept and maintain them through coordinated psychological participation. The phenomenon involves complex interactions between individual consciousness and group psychology, where personal beliefs become influenced by perceived social consensus, while simultaneously contributing to the collective reality through individual participation and validation. Social reality generation operates through multiple mechanisms, including language, ritual, social pressure, and institutional structures that maintain shared psychological constructions across large groups of people and extended time periods. Individual differences in social reality participation relate to conformity tendencies, critical thinking abilities, and cultural background, with some people showing stronger adherence to collective beliefs, while others maintain more independent perspective on social constructions. The brain's reality generation system can create problems when social realities become disconnected from physical realities or when different groups construct incompatible social worlds that generate conflict and misunderstanding. Understanding social reality construction has implications for social change efforts, cross-cultural communication, and treating individuals whose personal reality conflicts with dominant social constructions. The discovery that humans actively create, rather than simply inhabit social reality challenges, objective models of society and reveals that cultural phenomena represent genuine psychological constructions that require active maintenance through collective mental participation. Fact 67. The invisible decision architecture. Human choices are systematically influenced by decision architecture factors, including option ordering, default settings, framing effects, and choice presentation. Formats that operate below conscious awareness to guide behavior in predictable directions. This invisible architecture works through cognitive shortcuts and biases that evolve to enable rapid decision-making in simple environments, but can be systematically influenced in complex modern choice situations. Research demonstrates that people are more likely to choose options presented first in lists, set default settings regardless of their appropriateness, and prefer choices framed as gains rather than losses, even when the objective outcomes are identical. The phenomenon involves automatic mental processes that simplify complex decisions by using environmental cues and presentation features as guides for choice, often without conscious recognition that these factors are influencing the decision process. Decision architecture effects can be so powerful that they override explicit preferences and values, leading people to make choices that contradict their stated goals and intentions, while maintaining the subjective experience of autonomous decision-making. Individual differences in architecture susceptibility relate to cognitive reflection abilities, decision-making styles, and awareness of bias effects, with some people showing greater resistance to architectural influence, while others remain highly susceptible to choice presentation effects. Understanding decision architecture has practical applications for public policy, where choice environments can be designed to promote beneficial behaviors like healthy eating and financial planning, and for personal decision-making, where awareness of architectural effects can improve choice quality. The discovery of systematic decision architecture influence challenges free choice assumptions and reveals that human autonomy operates within environmental constraints that significantly shape behavioral outcomes through unconscious influence mechanisms. Fact 68. Your brain's pattern interrupt system. The human brain maintains specialized systems for detecting when established patterns are broken or interrupted, triggering attention shifts and behavioral adaptations that help individuals respond to environmental changes and novel situations. This pattern interrupt detection involves neural networks that continuously monitor for deviations from expected sequences, familiar routines, and established behavioral patterns, generating alert signals when interruptions occur. Research shows that pattern interrupts can disrupt automatic behaviors, create opportunities for conscious choice, and facilitate learning by highlighting discrepancies between expectations and reality that require attention and behavioral modification. The phenomenon occurs across multiple domains, including motor behavior, where unexpected obstacles interrupt movement patterns, social interaction, where norm violations interrupt social scripts, and cognitive processing, where contradictory information interrupts belief patterns. Pattern interrupt systems evolved because detecting changes in established patterns could indicate important environmental shifts requiring immediate attention and behavioral adaptation for survival and success. Individual differences in interrupt sensitivity relate to cognitive flexibility, anxiety levels, and attention abilities, with some people showing heightened sensitivity to pattern breaks, while others demonstrate greater tolerance for disruption and change. The pattern interrupt system can become problematic when it becomes overactive, creating excessive distractibility and difficulty maintaining focused behavior, or underactive, leading to rigid patterns that resist beneficial change. Understanding pattern interrupts has practical applications for behavior change interventions, where strategic interruption of unwanted patterns can create opportunities for developing new behaviors, and for managing attention in environments with frequent interruptions. The discovery of dedicated pattern interrupt systems reveals that human behavior involves active monitoring for change opportunities rather than simple maintenance of established routines. Fact 69. The social mirror neural network humans possess extensive neural networks dedicated to mirroring and simulating others' mental states, creating shared psychological spaces where individual minds can partially merge and coordinate through neurological synchronization processes. This social mirroring system involves mirror neurons throughout the brain that fire both when performing actions and when observing others perform similar actions, creating neural resonance that enables understanding and prediction of others' behavior and intentions. Research using simultaneous brain imaging of multiple individuals shows that social mirroring can create synchronized neural activity between people during meaningful interactions, suggesting that successful communication involves partial neural merging rather than simple information exchange. The phenomenon extends beyond motor mirroring to include emotional mirroring, where individuals automatically simulate others' feeling states, and cognitive mirroring, where people unconsciously adopt others' thinking patterns and mental perspectives during social interaction. Individual differences in mirroring capacity relate to empathy levels, social skills, and autism spectrum traits, with some people showing extensive neural mirroring abilities, while others demonstrate reduced social neural synchronization that may affect interpersonal understanding. The social mirror network can become problematic when boundaries between self and others become blurred, leading to emotional contagion. Loss of personal identity or difficulty distinguishing phenomenon can become problematic when past emotional states interfere with current reality assessment, as occurs in post-traumatic stress disorder, where past threats continue to feel present and dangerous despite being objectively resolved. Understanding emotional time travel has therapeutic implications for treating mood disorders, relationship problems, and trauma, where techniques that modify emotional memory networks can reduce the intensity of negative re-experiencing, while preserving important learning from past experiences. The emotional time machine reveals that human consciousness exists simultaneously across multiple temporal dimensions, with past experiences maintaining active presence in current psychological life through direct neural reactivation of historical emotional states. The social mirror network can become problematic when boundaries between self and others become blurred, leading to emotional contagion, loss of personal identity, or difficulty distinguishing between personal thoughts and feelings versus those absorbed from others. Understanding social mirroring has implications for therapeutic relationships, where neural synchronization between therapist and client may facilitate healing, and for team dynamics, where group neural coordination can enhance collaboration and communication effectiveness. The discovery of extensive neural mirroring systems reveals that human consciousness may be more interconnected than traditionally assumed, with individual minds existing within shared neural networks that create genuine psychological overlap between separate people. Fact 70. Your brain's internal fact-checker. The human brain contains sophisticated fact-checking systems that continuously evaluate the plausibility and consistency of incoming information. But these systems can be systematically fooled by confident presentation, social consensus, and emotional appeal that override logical evaluation processes. This internal fact-checker involves prefrontal cortex regions that compare new information against stored knowledge, assess source credibility, and generate believability ratings that influence whether information gets accepted or rejected. Research demonstrates that the fact-checking system operates automatically but can be overwhelmed by information overload, bypassed by emotional arousal, or corrupted by confirmation bias that favors information confirming existing beliefs over contradictory evidence. The phenomenon helps explain how false beliefs can feel completely convincing when presented with appropriate confidence and social support, and why people often maintain beliefs despite contradictory evidence when the beliefs serve important psychological functions. Internal fact-checking varies among individuals based on cognitive abilities, educational background, and thinking styles, with some people showing more rigorous evaluation processes, while others rely more heavily on intuitive acceptance of information that feels right. The fact-checking system evolved in environments with limited information sources and direct experience, making it potentially inadequate for modern environments with extensive misinformation, sophisticated persuasion techniques, and complex abstract claims that exceed direct verification abilities. Understanding internal fact-checking has implications for education, where teaching critical thinking skills can strengthen natural evaluation processes, and for media consumption, where awareness of fact-checker limitations can improve information evaluation and belief formation. The discovery that humans have automatic but fallible fact-checking systems reveals that believing accurate information requires active effort and skill rather than passive acceptance of convincing presentations. Fact 71. The attention spotlight's hidden movements. Visual attention moves in predictable patterns that can be tracked and influenced, with eye movements and attention shifts following systematic rules based on visual features, personal interests, and unconscious biases that guide where people look and what they notice. This attention guidance system operates through interactions between bottom-up processes driven by visual salience and top-down processes controlled by goals and expectations, creating predictable scanning patterns that vary among individuals but follow general principles. Research using eye tracking technology reveals that attention moves in characteristic patterns, including left-to-right scanning for text-like displays, center bias for symmetric layouts, and face priority for social scenes, with cultural background influencing specific movement patterns. The phenomenon has practical applications for user interface design, advertising effectiveness, and educational materials where understanding natural attention patterns can improve information, presentation, and learning outcomes. Individual differences in attention movement relate to reading abilities, cultural background, and personality traits, with some people showing more systematic scanning, while others demonstrate more random or impulsive attention patterns. The attention spotlight system can be disrupted by various factors, including fatigue, which reduces systematic scanning, anxiety, which increases vigilance for threats, and attention disorders, which may involve dysregulated attention movement patterns. Understanding attention movements has implications for treating reading difficulties, designing accessible interfaces, and optimizing learning environments where attention guidance can improve information processing and comprehension. The discovery of systematic attention patterns challenges random models of visual scanning and reveals that human visual behavior involves sophisticated guidance systems that can be understood and potentially influenced through environmental design. Fact 72. Your memory's creative writing department. Memory formation involves significant creative processes that embellish, modify, and enhance experiences during encoding and retrieval, creating memories that may be more vivid and meaningful than the original events, but potentially less factually accurate. This creative memory system operates through interactions between hippocampal encoding processes and prefrontal meaning-making systems that add emotional significance, causal connections, and narrative coherence to raw experiences. Research demonstrates that people regularly remember conversations as more eloquent than they actually were, recall events as more dramatic than they appeared to observers, and enhance details that support personal narratives while diminishing inconsistent information. The creative writing process serves adaptive functions by creating memories that are emotionally meaningful and personally relevant, even when factual accuracy is compromised through enhancement and modification processes. Individual differences in memory creativity relate to imagination abilities, narrative skills, and personality traits, with some people showing extensive creative memory enhancement, while others maintain more literal but potentially less meaningful recollections. The phenomenon has implications for understanding false memories, where creative processes can generate entirely fictional events that feel completely real, and for therapeutic interventions that help people develop more adaptive personal narratives. Understanding memory creativity helps explain why different people can have dramatically different recollections of shared events, and why personal memories often feel more significant and meaningful than objective records suggest they should. The discovery of creative memory processes challenges recording models of memory and reveals that remembering involves active construction rather than passive retrieval of stored information. Fact 73. The unconscious social status calculator. The human brain continuously calculates relative social status across multiple dimensions simultaneously, processing information about wealth, education, attractiveness, age, and social connections to generate instant hierarchical assessments that influence behavior and emotional responses. This status calculation system operates automatically and unconsciously, using visual cues, behavioral markers, and contextual information to determine relative positioning within social hierarchies before conscious evaluation occurs. Research shows that status calculations affect everything from hormone levels to neural activity, with people showing different physiological responses when interacting with higher versus lower status individuals based on automatic hierarchical assessments. The phenomenon involves specialized neural circuits, including the striatum and prefrontal regions that process dominance and submission cues while generating appropriate behavioral responses based on perceived status relationships. Individual differences in status calculation sensitivity relate to cultural background, personality traits, and social experience, with some people showing heightened status awareness, while others demonstrate reduced sensitivity to hierarchical cues and relationships. The unconscious nature of status calculation means that people often remain unaware of how status perceptions influence their behavior, emotional responses, and decision-making during social interactions. Understanding status calculation has implications for workplace dynamics, educational environments, and therapeutic relationships where status perceptions can affect communication, effectiveness, and relationship quality. The discovery of automatic status processing reveals that human social interaction occurs within complex hierarchical frameworks that continuously influence behavior through unconscious status assessment and response mechanisms. Modern environments may be creating status calculation overload through exposure to extensive social comparison information that exceeds natural processing capacity. Fact 74. Your brain's reality simulation engine. The human brain operates as a sophisticated reality simulation engine that generates predictive models of future states and tests potential behaviors through mental simulation before committing to actual actions. This simulation system involves interactions between memory networks that provide experiential data, imagination systems that create novel scenarios, and evaluation processes that assess likely outcomes and consequences. Research demonstrates that people regularly run mental simulations of conversations before having them, rehearse behaviors before performing them, and test decisions by imagining their results, with simulation quality affecting real-world performance and decision-making effectiveness. The phenomenon involves default mode network activity during rest periods when the brain spontaneously generates future scenarios and evaluates potential courses of action through detailed mental modeling processes. Individual differences in simulation ability relate to imagination capacity, planning skills, and cognitive flexibility, with some people showing extensive mental simulation capabilities, while others rely more on immediate response and reactive decision-making. The reality simulation engine can become problematic when simulations become excessively negative, creating anxiety about unlikely future events, or overly optimistic, leading to poor preparation for realistic challenges and obstacles. Understanding mental simulation has practical applications for improving planning abilities, reducing anxiety through realistic scenario preparation, and enhancing performance through mental rehearsal and practice techniques. The discovery of extensive reality simulation capabilities reveals that human consciousness involves continuous, future-oriented mental modeling rather than simple present-moment awareness and reactive responding. Fact 75. The invisible social influence detector. Humans possess sophisticated neural systems for detecting when others are attempting to influence their behavior, thoughts, or emotions, operating through unconscious monitoring of persuasion attempts and social manipulation tactics. This influence detection system evolved because accurately identifying influence attempts was crucial for maintaining autonomy and avoiding exploitation in social environments where deception and manipulation could have serious consequences. Research shows that people can detect influence attempts through subtle cues, including changes in vocal patterns, facial expressions, body language, and conversation structure, even when they cannot consciously identify what triggered their suspicion. The phenomenon involves the anterior cingulate cortex and other monitoring systems that process social intentions and generate warning signals when interactions feel manipulative or when other stated intentions conflict with their apparent goals. Individual differences in influence detection ability relate to social experience, trust levels, and cognitive abilities, with some people showing heightened sensitivity to manipulation attempts, while others demonstrate greater susceptibility to social influence. The detection system can malfunction in various ways, including false positive detection that creates paranoid suspicion of benign interactions, or reduced sensitivity that increases vulnerability to exploitation and manipulation. Understanding influence detection has implications for recognizing and resisting unwanted persuasion, improving sales and marketing ethics, and developing healthier relationships based on mutual respect rather than manipulation tactics. The discovery of automatic influence detection systems reveals that human social cognition involves continuous monitoring for potential exploitation rather than simple acceptance of others' communications and intentions. Fact 76. Your memory's timestamp system. The brain maintains multiple timing systems for dating memories, but these temporal stamps can become scrambled, leading to memories that feel recent when they are old memories that seem ancient. When they are recent and false temporal ordering that doesn't match actual chronological sequences. This timestamping process involves interactions between the hippocampus, which processes temporal context, and prefrontal regions that organize memories into chronological frameworks that may not correspond to actual timing. Research demonstrates that emotional intensity can distort timestamps, making traumatic events feel perpetually recent, while positive experiences may seem temporally distant regardless of their actual occurrence dates. The phenomenon helps explain why some childhood memories feel more recent than last week's events, and why significant life changes can make previous life periods feel like different lifetimes despite occurring relatively recently. Timestamp distortion affects not only personal memories but also historical and cultural memories, where events that occurred decades ago may feel more immediate than recent occurrences, depending on their emotional significance and personal relevance. Individual differences in temporal memory accuracy relate to attention abilities, emotional regulation, and life experience patterns, with some people maintaining clearer chronological organization, while others show more temporal confusion and distortion. The timestamping system can become particularly disrupted during major life transitions, traumatic experiences, and aging processes where normal temporal organization may break down and require conscious effort to maintain. Accurate chronological understanding. Understanding memory timestamps has implications for treating trauma where temporal distortion may contribute to feeling stuck in the past, and for maintaining accurate personal narratives despite natural temporal memory distortions. Fact 77. The unconscious behavioral prediction system. The human brain continuously generates predictions about others' future behavior based on minimal cues. Using sophisticated pattern recognition and social modeling systems that operate below conscious awareness to anticipate actions, reactions, and behavioral sequences. This prediction system involves mirror neuron networks and mentalizing regions that process behavioral patterns and generate expectancies about what others will do next in various social situations. Research shows that behavioral predictions begin forming within milliseconds of social contact and become increasingly refined as additional information becomes available, with accurate predictions facilitating smoother social interactions and communication. The phenomenon extends beyond simple behavior prediction to include emotional state prediction, intention prediction, and response prediction that help individuals prepare appropriate reactions and behavioral adjustments during interpersonal encounters. Individual differences in prediction accuracy relate to social experience, empathy levels, and theory of mind abilities with some people, showing remarkable intuitive ability to anticipate others' behavior, while others may struggle with social prediction and feel surprised by common behavioral patterns. The prediction system can become problematic when predictions become rigid stereotypes that ignore individual differences, or when anxiety leads to excessive prediction of negative behaviors that may not occur. Understanding behavioral prediction has applications for improving social skills, enhancing therapeutic relationships where accurate prediction facilitates effective interventions, and developing better human-computer interfaces that can anticipate user behavior and preferences. The discovery of extensive unconscious prediction systems reveals that social interaction involves continuous mental modeling of others' likely behaviors rather than simple reactive responding to observed actions. Fact 78. Your brain's social reality check system. The human brain uses social consensus as a primary method for validating beliefs, tastes, and judgments, with neural systems that automatically compare personal opinions against perceived group consensus to determine accuracy and appropriateness. This social reality checking process involves the medial prefrontal cortex and other social cognition regions that monitor agreement between personal judgments and social feedback, generating confidence signals based on perceived social validation or invalidation. Research demonstrates that social disagreement can actually change perceptual experiences, with people reporting different visual perceptions when their initial judgments conflict with group consensus, suggesting that social reality checking operates at fundamental levels of consciousness. The phenomenon helps explain how social pressure can influence not just expressed opinions, but genuine beliefs and experiences. With the brain treating social consensus as valuable information about objective reality. Social reality checking varies among individuals based on conformity tendencies, self-confidence levels, and cultural background, with some people showing stronger reliance on social validation, while others maintain more independent reality assessment processes. The system can become problematic when group consensus is incorrect, leading to shared delusions and false beliefs that feel completely valid because they receive social support and validation. Understanding social reality checking has implications for resisting group pressure when appropriate, maintaining individual judgment in social situations, and recognizing how social environments shape personal beliefs and perceptions through consensus feedback mechanisms. The discovery that social validation directly influences reality, perception, challenges individual models of truth, and reveals that human consciousness operates within social frameworks that continuously shape personal understanding through consensus feedback. Fact 79. The Memory Palace's Secret Tunnels. Memory networks contain hidden connections that link seemingly unrelated experiences through shared emotions, sensory details, or abstract associations, creating secret tunnels between disparate memories that can cause unexpected recall chains and association patterns. This hidden connectivity occurs through the brain's natural tendency to link experiences that share common elements, with neural networks automatically creating pathways between memories that may not have obvious logical connections. Research shows that accessing one memory can spontaneously trigger associated memories through these hidden tunnels, leading to sudden recollections that seem to come from nowhere, but actually follow unconscious associative pathways. The phenomenon explains why certain smells can instantly transport people to childhood memories, why random songs can trigger emotional experiences from completely different life periods, and why solving one problem can suddenly provide insight into unrelated challenges. Memory tunnel formation involves both automatic processes during initial experience encoding and consolidation processes during sleep when the brain creates new connections between previously separate memory networks. Individual differences in tunnel connectivity relate to creativity levels, associative thinking abilities, and emotional sensitivity, with some people showing extensive interconnected memory networks while others maintain more compartmentalized memory organization. The hidden tunnels can become problematic when traumatic memories create unwanted connections that trigger distressing recalls through seemingly innocent cues, requiring therapeutic interventions to modify associative pathways. Understanding memory connectivity has practical applications for enhancing learning through strategic association building, improving creativity by accessing unexpected memory connections, and treating trauma by modifying problematic associative tunnels. The discovery of extensive hidden memory connections reveals that human memory operates as an interconnected network rather than separate storage units, with recall patterns influenced by complex associative relationships operating below conscious awareness. Fact 80. Your brain's emotional forecast system. The human brain continuously generates emotional forecasts about how future events will feel, using sophisticated prediction systems that combine past emotional memories with current expectations to anticipate future feeling states and their intensity and duration. This emotional forecasting system involves interactions between memory networks that store emotional experiences and prefrontal regions that project current emotional patterns into imagined future scenarios. Research demonstrates that people regularly show systematic biases in emotional forecasting, including impact bias, where they overestimate the intensity and duration of future emotions, and focusing illusion, where they overemphasize the emotional importance of single future events. The phenomenon influences decision-making by creating emotional expectations that guide choices, with people avoiding anticipated negative emotions and seeking predicted positive emotions, even when their forecasts are systematically inaccurate. Individual differences in forecasting accuracy relate to emotional regulation abilities, experience diversity, and metacognitive awareness, with some people showing better intuitive understanding of their emotional patterns, while others consistently mismatch expectations with actual experiences. The emotional forecast system can become problematic when predictions create unnecessary anxiety about future events that may not be as emotionally intense as anticipated, or when poor forecasting leads to decisions that don't actually improve emotional well-being. Understanding emotional forecasting has implications for improving decision-making. By developing more accurate emotional predictions, reducing anxiety about anticipated future emotions, and helping people recognize that emotional experiences are often more manageable than expected, The discovery of systematic emotional forecasting biases reveals that human decision-making involves continuous emotional prediction processes that may not accurately reflect actual future experiences, suggesting the importance of learning from emotional prediction errors to improve future forecasting accuracy. Fact 81. The unconscious social hierarchy navigation system, humans, automatically navigate complex social hierarchies using unconscious systems that detect status relationships, adjust behavior based on relative positioning, and maintain appropriate social distance and deference patterns without conscious planning or awareness. This navigation system evolved because successfully managing hierarchical relationships was crucial for accessing resources, avoiding conflict, and maintaining group membership in ancestral social environments. Research shows that people automatically adjust their posture, voice tone, eye contact patterns, and spatial positioning based on perceived status differences, with these behavioral modifications occurring within seconds of encountering status cues. The phenomenon involves neural networks that process dominance and submission signals while coordinating appropriate behavioral responses based on individual positioning within multiple, overlapping hierarchical systems. Social hierarchy navigation operates across various contexts, including workplace relationships, family dynamics, peer groups, and cultural interactions, with different behavioral patterns emerging based on specific hierarchical contexts and cultural norms. Individual differences in navigation abilities relate to social intelligence, cultural background, and personality traits, with some people showing natural facility for hierarchical relationships, while others may struggle with status-appropriate behavior. The unconscious nature of hierarchy. Navigation means that people often remain unaware of their automatic status-based behavioral adjustments, though these patterns significantly influence social interactions and relationship outcomes. Understanding social hierarchy navigation has implications for workplace effectiveness, cross-cultural communication, and therapeutic relationships where status dynamics may affect communication patterns and relationship development. The discovery of automatic hierarchy navigation systems reveals that human social behavior operates within complex status frameworks that continuously influence interpersonal dynamics through unconscious positioning and behavioral adjustment mechanisms. Fact 82. Your brain's pattern completion obsession. The human brain experiences genuine compulsion to complete interrupted patterns, solve partial puzzles, and resolve unfinished sequences, with this completion drive generating measurable stress when patterns remain incomplete and pleasure when completion occurs. This pattern completion obsession involves dopamine reward systems that create motivation to resolve incomplete information while generating frustration and cognitive tension when completion is prevented or delayed. Research demonstrates that interrupted tasks create persistent cognitive activation that continues until completion occurs, with the brain maintaining background processing of incomplete patterns even during other activities. The phenomenon explains why cliffhangers create suspense, why unfinished projects feel mentally burdensome, and why people experience satisfaction from organizing, solving, and completing various types of patterns and sequences. Pattern completion drive varies among individuals based on personality traits like need for closure and tolerance for ambiguity, with some people showing stronger completion compulsions, while others accept incomplete patterns more easily. The obsession can become problematic when applied to situations that lack inherent completion potential, leading to frustration with open-ended problems, relationship ambiguity, or life situations that cannot be resolved neatly. Understanding pattern completion has practical applications for motivation and engagement, where incomplete patterns can create compelling involvement, and for stress management, where accepting incompletion may reduce anxiety about unresolvable situations. The discovery of completion-driven neural reward systems reveals that human cognition involves active pleasure-seeking through pattern resolution rather than simple information processing, with completion representing a fundamental psychological need that influences behavior and emotional experience. Fact 83. The social emotional contagion amplifier. Social groups can amplify individual emotions through collective emotional processes that intensify feelings beyond what any individual would experience alone, creating emotional experiences that exceed the sum of individual contributions through resonance and feedback effects. This emotional amplification occurs through synchronized neural activity, shared attention, focus, and reciprocal emotional expression that creates escalating cycles of emotional intensity within group contexts. Research demonstrates that collective emotions can reach levels that feel overwhelming and uncontrollable to individual participants, with group emotional states taking on emergent properties that transcend personal emotional regulation abilities. The phenomenon helps explain how crowds can develop extreme emotional states, how family emotional climates can become intense and persistent, and how team dynamics can create emotional experiences that individuals cannot generate independently. Social emotional amplification involves mirror neuron systems and limbic resonance that allow individual emotional states to influence and be influenced by others in continuous feedback loops that can rapidly escalate emotional intensity. Individual differences in amplification susceptibility relate to empathy levels, emotional regulation abilities, and social sensitivity, with highly empathetic individuals often serving as emotional amplifiers, while others may maintain more emotional independence in group settings. The amplification process can become problematic when it creates destructive group emotions like mob anger or collective anxiety that override individual judgment and lead to poor group decisions. Understanding emotional amplification has implications for group management, family therapy, and community interventions where recognizing and managing collective emotional processes can improve outcomes and prevent destructive emotional escalation. The discovery of social emotional amplification reveals that human emotional experience involves complex group-level processes that can fundamentally alter individual emotional states through collective participation. Fact 84. Your Memory Significance Editor. The brain automatically edits memories to enhance their personal significance and meaning, while reducing attention to mundane details, creating recollections that may be more meaningful than the original experiences, but potentially less factually accurate. This significance editing process involves interactions between emotional memory systems that tag important elements and narrative construction systems that organize experiences into coherent, personally meaningful stories. Research shows that people consistently remember events as more significant, dramatic, and personally relevant than objective records suggest, with the editing process enhancing elements that support personal identity and life narrative, while diminishing contradictory or meaningless details. The phenomenon serves adaptive functions by creating memories that provide guidance for future behavior and maintain psychological coherence, even when factual accuracy is compromised through enhancement and modification processes. Significance editing varies among individuals based on personality traits, emotional sensitivity, and narrative abilities, with some people showing extensive memory enhancement, while others maintain more literal but potentially less meaningful recollections. The editing process can become problematic when it creates unrealistic memories that generate false expectations, or when it prevents accurate learning from past experiences through excessive, positive, or negative enhancement. Understanding significance editing helps explain why personal memories often feel more meaningful than they appear to others, and why different people can have dramatically different recollections of shared experiences based on their personal significance frameworks. The discovery of automatic significance editing reveals that human memory serves identity construction rather than historical recording, with remembering involving active meaning-making rather than passive information storage. Fact 85. The unconscious social threat detection system, the human brain, maintains specialized systems for detecting social threats, including rejection, exclusion, betrayal, and social aggression, operating through unconscious monitoring processes that scan for social danger signals and prepare defensive responses. This social threat detection evolved because social threats could be as dangerous as physical threats in group living environments where social rejection meant loss of protection, resources, and survival support. Research demonstrates that social threat detection operates faster than conscious awareness, with neural alarm signals triggered by subtle social cues, including facial expressions, vocal tones, body language, and changes in social attention patterns. The phenomenon involves the amygdala and other threat processing regions that generate fight-or-flight responses to social danger, while coordinating defensive behaviors like withdrawal, aggression, or appeasement based on threat type and severity. Individual differences in social threat sensitivity relate to attachment history, social anxiety levels, and past social trauma, with some people showing hypervigilance for social threats, while others may have reduced threat detection that increases vulnerability. The threat detection system can malfunction in various ways, including false positive detection that creates social anxiety and paranoia, or reduced sensitivity that fails to identify genuine social threats and increases risk of exploitation. Understanding social threat detection has implications for treating social anxiety, improving interpersonal relationships, and recognizing how social environments affect stress levels and behavioral responses through threat activation. The discovery of sophisticated social threat detection systems reveals that human social cognition involves continuous security monitoring rather than simple social engagement, with threat detection significantly influencing social behavior and emotional experience. Fact 86. Your brain's attention economy manager. The human brain operates sophisticated attention economy systems that allocate limited cognitive resources among competing demands, making strategic decisions about what deserves mental energy while filtering out less important information through resource management processes. This attention economics involves executive control systems that monitor current cognitive load, assess priority levels of different mental tasks, and redistribute attention resources based on changing demands and goals. Research demonstrates that attention allocation follows economic principles, including cost-benefit analysis, resource scarcity management, and efficiency optimization, with the brain automatically making attention investment decisions that maximize cognitive return. The phenomenon explains why people can focus intensely on important tasks, while remaining unaware of irrelevant environmental information, and why attention fatigue develops when cognitive demands exceed available resources. Individual differences in attention economy efficiency relate to working memory capacity, cognitive control abilities, and training experience, with some people showing more effective attention resource management, while others experience frequent cognitive overload and attention conflicts. The attention economy can become disrupted by various factors, including stress, which reduces available resources, multitasking demands that exceed processing capacity, and attention disorders that involve dysregulated resource allocation processes. Understanding attention economics has practical applications for productivity optimization, educational design that works with natural attention limitations, and therapeutic interventions for attention-related difficulties. The discovery of attention economy systems reveals that human cognition involves sophisticated resource management rather than unlimited processing capacity, with attention allocation representing strategic decisions that significantly influence cognitive performance and mental efficiency. Fact 87. The social reality distortion field. Humans can unconsciously alter others' perception of reality through subtle influence processes that operate below awareness, creating social reality distortion fields that shape how others think, feel, and perceive situations without explicit manipulation or conscious intent. This reality distortion occurs through multiple subtle channels, including emotional expression, attention direction, expectation, communication, and behavioral modeling that influence others' mental states and perceptual processes. Research shows that charismatic individuals can systematically alter group perceptions, mood states, and decision-making patterns through unconscious influence processes that operate through social synchronization and suggestion mechanisms. The phenomenon involves neural mirroring systems that allow individual mental states to influence and coordinate with others, creating shared psychological experiences that may differ from what individuals would experience independently. Social reality distortion can be positive when it enhances group performance and well-being, or negative when it creates false beliefs, emotional manipulation, or loss of individual judgment and autonomy. Individual differences in distortion ability relate to charisma, emotional intelligence, and social influence skills, with some people naturally creating strong reality distortion effects, while others maintain more neutral social presence. Understanding reality distortion has implications for leadership development, therapeutic relationship management, and recognizing when personal perceptions may be influenced by others' reality distortion fields rather than objective circumstances. The discovery of unconscious reality distortion reveals that human social interaction involves continuous mutual influence that shapes perception and experience through subtle psychological coordination processes. Fact 88. Your memory's emotional color palette. The brain assigns emotional colors to memories during encoding and retrieval, with different feeling tones becoming associated with specific experiences and influencing how those memories are recalled, interpreted, and used for future decision-making. This emotional coloring process involves interactions between the amygdala, which processes emotional significance, and hippocampal memory systems that incorporate emotional tags into memory representations. Research demonstrates that memories can change emotional color over time based on subsequent experiences, current mood states, and reappraisal processes that modify how past events are emotionally interpreted and experienced. The phenomenon explains why the same memory can feel positive during happy periods and negative during depressed periods, and why therapeutic interventions can alter the emotional impact of traumatic memories without changing their factual content. Emotional memory coloring affects decision-making by influencing how past experiences inform current choices, with positively colored memories encouraging similar future behaviors, while negatively colored memories create avoidance and fear responses. Individual differences in emotional coloring relate to mood regulation abilities, personality traits, and emotional sensitivity, with some people showing stable emotional memory colors, while others experience more fluid emotional associations that change with circumstances. The coloring process can become problematic when emotional tags become disconnected from appropriate content, creating positive associations with harmful experiences or negative associations with beneficial ones that impair judgment and decision-making. Understanding emotional memory coloring has therapeutic implications for treating trauma, depression, and anxiety by helping people develop more adaptive emotional associations with past experiences. The discovery of emotional memory coloring reveals that human memory involves active emotional interpretation rather than neutral information storage, with feeling tones playing crucial roles in how past experiences influence current behavior and future planning. Fact 89. The unconscious social calibration system. Humans automatically calibrate their behavior, emotional expression, and communication style based on subtle social feedback cues, continuously adjusting their social presentation to match environmental demands and relationship contexts through unconscious adaptation processes. This social calibration system operates through rapid assessment of others' responses, environmental appropriateness, and cultural norms, followed by behavioral modifications designed to optimize social effectiveness and acceptance. Research shows that social calibration occurs within seconds of social contact and continues throughout interactions, with people automatically adjusting their volume, formality, humor level, and emotional intensity based on feedback from others and situational demands. The phenomenon involves mirror neuron systems and social cognition networks that monitor interpersonal dynamics while coordinating appropriate behavioral responses based on social context and relationship requirements. Individual differences in calibration sensitivity relate to social intelligence, cultural background, and personality traits, with some people showing highly responsive social adaptation, while others maintain more consistent behavioral patterns across different social contexts. The calibration system can malfunction in various ways, including over-calibration that sacrifices authentic self-expression for social acceptance, or under-calibration that fails to adjust behavior appropriately for different social contexts and relationships. Understanding social calibration has implications for improving social skills, managing social anxiety, where excessive calibration creates stress, and developing authentic relationships that balance social adaptation with genuine self-expression. The discovery of automatic social calibration reveals that human social behavior involves continuous adaptation rather than fixed personality expression, with social effectiveness requiring flexible behavioral adjustment based on environmental feedback and social context. Fact 90. Your brain's future memory generator. The human brain generates detailed memories of imagined future events that can become so vivid they feel like genuine recollections, creating false memories of experiences that have never occurred but feel completely authentic and meaningful. This future memory generation involves the same neural networks responsible for actual memory formation, with imagination and planning systems, creating experiences that get processed and stored through normal memory consolidation mechanisms. Research demonstrates that people can develop confident memories of imagined conversations, planned activities, and anticipated events that never actually occurred, with these future memories becoming indistinguishable from genuine recollections over time. The phenomenon occurs because the brain's memory systems cannot reliably distinguish between information from actual experience versus information from detailed imagination, leading to memory confusion that can create genuine false recollections. Future memory generation serves adaptive functions by allowing people to prepare for upcoming events and rehearse behaviors mentally, but can create problems when imagined experiences are mistaken for actual occurrences. Individual differences in future memory susceptibility relate to imagination abilities, reality monitoring skills, and metacognitive awareness, with some people showing greater resistance to false future memories, while others readily accept imagined experiences as genuine recollections. Understanding future memory generation has implications for eyewitness testimony, therapeutic interventions that use imagery techniques, and personal planning, where distinguishing between actual and imagined experiences becomes important for accurate decision-making. The discovery of future memory systems reveals that human memory involves active construction of both past and future experiences, with imagination and recollection using shared neural mechanisms that can create confusion between different types of mental experiences. Fact 91. The social-emotional thermostat malfunction. Social groups can develop dysfunctional emotional regulation patterns, where collective emotional responses become stuck in particular ranges, creating persistent group moods that resist change despite environmental conditions that should naturally shift emotional states. This social-emotional thermostat malfunction occurs through mutual reinforcement of emotional patterns, shared coping strategies, and group identity processes that maintain emotional consistency even when individual members might naturally experience different feelings. Research shows that families, teams, and communities can become locked into chronic emotional patterns, including perpetual optimism that ignores real problems, persistent negativity that rejects positive opportunities, or emotional numbness that prevents appropriate responses to significant events. The phenomenon involves complex interactions between individual emotional regulation systems and group emotional dynamics, with collective patterns often overriding personal emotional responses and creating pressure for emotional conformity. Social-emotional thermostat problems can perpetuate themselves through selection processes where individuals who fit the group emotional pattern are welcomed, while those with different emotional styles are excluded or encouraged to leave. Individual differences in susceptibility to group emotional thermostat effects relate to emotional independence, social sensitivity, and boundary-setting abilities, with some people maintaining personal emotional regulation despite group pressures, while others readily adopt collective emotional patterns. Understanding social-emotional thermostat malfunctions has implications for family therapy, organizational development, and community intervention, where addressing collective emotional patterns may be more effective than focusing solely on individual emotional regulation. The discovery of social-emotional thermostat systems reveals that human emotional experience involves both individual and collective regulation mechanisms that can become dysfunctional and require systematic intervention at group rather than individual levels. Fact 92. Your brain's social status prediction engine. The human brain continuously generates predictions about social status changes, anticipating how current behaviors will affect future social positioning and adjusting actions based on predicted status consequences through sophisticated social forecasting systems. This status prediction engine involves interactions between social cognition networks that model group dynamics and reward systems that evaluate potential status gains or losses associated with different behavioral choices. Research demonstrates that people automatically consider status implications when making decisions, with social status predictions influencing choices even when status concerns are not consciously recognized or acknowledged. The phenomenon helps explain why people often behave differently than their stated values would suggest, as unconscious status prediction systems may override conscious moral commitments when status consequences are anticipated. Status prediction accuracy varies among individuals based on social experience, intelligence, and cultural knowledge, with some people showing remarkable ability to anticipate social consequences, while others repeatedly make choices that damage their social positioning. The prediction engine can become problematic when it creates excessive status anxiety that interferes with authentic behavior, or when status predictions become more important than other values in guiding decision-making processes. Understanding social status prediction has implications for improving social skills, reducing status anxiety, QU, and helping people make decisions that align with their genuine values rather than unconscious status optimization systems. The discovery of automatic status prediction reveals that human social behavior involves continuous forecasting of social consequences rather than simple present-moment social interaction, with status considerations significantly influencing behavioral choices through unconscious prediction mechanisms. Fact 93. The Memory Palace's renovation crew. The brain employs specialized systems that continuously renovate memory palaces by updating stored information, reorganizing memory networks, and modifying past experiences to maintain current relevance and psychological coherence over time. This memory renovation process involves active modification of existing memories rather than simple storage of new information, with renovation crews working during sleep and rest periods to maintain memory system efficiency and relevance. Research shows that memories undergo systematic updates that can change factual content, emotional associations, and personal significance based on current life circumstances, goals, and psychological needs. The renovation process serves adaptive functions by keeping memory systems current and personally meaningful, but can create problems when important historical accuracy is lost through excessive modification and updating processes. Memory renovation varies among individuals based on cognitive flexibility, emotional regulation abilities, and personality traits, with some people showing extensive memory modification, while others maintain more stable but potentially less adaptive memory systems. The phenomenon helps explain why long-term memories often change gradually over time, and why people may not recognize the extent to which their recollections have been modified through ongoing renovation processes. Understanding memory renovation has implications for therapeutic interventions where guided memory modification can reduce trauma symptoms, educational approaches that work with natural updating processes, and legal contexts where memory renovation may affect testimony accuracy. The discovery of active memory renovation reveals that human memory systems involve continuous maintenance and updating rather than permanent storage, with remembering representing ongoing construction rather than simple retrieval of fixed information. Fact 94. Your brain's social reality anchor system. The human brain maintains anchor points in social reality that serve as stable reference points for understanding relationships, social norms, and interpersonal dynamics. But these anchors can shift gradually without conscious awareness, leading to fundamental changes in social reality perception. This social anchoring system involves neural networks that establish baseline expectations for social behavior, relationship patterns, and cultural norms that serve as comparison standards for evaluating new social experiences. Research demonstrates that social anchors can drift over time through exposure to new social environments, relationship changes, and cultural shifts, with individuals often unaware that their fundamental social reference points have changed. The phenomenon helps explain how people can adapt to different social environments while maintaining the sense that their social reality is stable and consistent, and why individuals may not recognize significant changes in their social attitudes and behaviors over time. Social anchor shifting can occur through gradual exposure to different social norms, significant relationship changes, or cultural transitions that slowly modify reference points without triggering awareness of the transformation process. Individual differences in anchor stability relate to cognitive flexibility, social adaptability, and personality traits, with some people maintaining consistent social anchors, while others show more fluid social reality frameworks that adapt quickly to environmental changes. The anchoring system can become problematic when anchors shift in unhealthy directions, creating tolerance for inappropriate behaviors or relationships that would have been rejected under previous social reference points. Understanding social reality anchoring has implications for recognizing gradual changes in personal social standards, maintaining healthy relationship boundaries despite social pressure, and helping people develop stable yet flexible social reference frameworks. The discovery of social reality anchor systems reveals that human social perception operates through reference point mechanisms that can change over time, affecting fundamental aspects of social judgment and interpersonal behavior through unconscious anchor modification processes. Fact 95. The unconscious decision momentum system, human. Decision-making involves momentum effects where initial choices influence subsequent decisions in predictable directions, creating decision chains that can lead people toward outcomes they never originally intended through incremental commitment escalation. This decision momentum occurs because making choices activates consistency-seeking systems that bias future decisions toward alignment with previous choices, even when circumstances change or when initial decisions prove suboptimal. Research demonstrates that small initial commitments can create momentum toward larger commitments through psychological consistency, mechanisms that make reversing course feel uncomfortable and inconsistent with previous actions. The phenomenon helps explain how people become trapped in escalating commitment situations, why small compromises can lead to major value violations, and how decision sequences can produce outcomes that contradict original intentions and goals. Decision momentum involves cognitive dissonance, reduction systems that modify attitudes and preferences to maintain consistency with previous choices, creating false justification for continuing problematic decision patterns. Individual differences in momentum susceptibility relate to cognitive flexibility, self-awareness, and willingness to acknowledge mistakes, with some people showing greater ability to break negative decision momentum, while others become locked into problematic patterns. The momentum system can become beneficial when it supports positive behavior change by creating consistency pressure that maintains healthy choices, but problematic when it perpetuates harmful patterns that resist modification despite negative consequences. Understanding decision momentum has implications for behavior change interventions, addiction recovery programs, and personal development strategies where recognizing and managing momentum effects can improve decision-making outcomes. The discovery of decision momentum systems reveals that human choice involves sequential processes rather than independent decisions, with choice patterns significantly influencing future decision-making through psychological momentum mechanisms. Fact 96. Your brain's emotional time capsule system. The human brain creates emotional time capsules that preserve complete emotional states from significant experiences, allowing these preserved emotions to be reactivated years or decades later with remarkable fidelity and intensity. This emotional preservation system involves specialized memory networks that maintain not just the factual content of experiences, but also the complete physiological and psychological context that accompanied original emotional states. Research shows that emotional time capsules can be triggered by environmental cues, sensory stimuli, or memory associations, causing people to re-experience past emotional states with an intensity that matches the original experiences. The phenomenon explains why certain songs, smells, or locations can instantly transport people back to powerful emotional moments, and why anniversary reactions can create unexpected emotional responses that seem disproportionate to current circumstances. Emotional time capsule formation involves interactions between the amygdala, hippocampus, and other limbic structures that coordinate to preserve complete emotional experiences rather than simple emotional memories or representations. Individual differences in time capsule formation relate to emotional sensitivity, trauma history, and memory consolidation patterns, with some people developing extensive emotional archives, while others maintain more limited emotional preservation systems. The time capsule system can become problematic when preserved negative emotions continue to influence current behavior and emotional responses, creating persistent emotional reactions that no longer match current life circumstances. Understanding emotional time capsules has therapeutic implications for treating trauma, managing anniversary reactions, and helping people access positive emotional resources from past experiences during difficult periods. The discovery of emotional time capsule systems reveals that human emotional experience involves temporal preservation mechanisms that maintain access to past emotional states across extended time periods. Fact 97. The Social Influence Resistance Network. The human brain contains specialized neural networks designed to resist unwanted social influence while maintaining openness to beneficial social information, creating sophisticated systems that protect individual autonomy while enabling healthy social learning and cooperation. This resistance network involves prefrontal regions that monitor for manipulation attempts, evaluate source credibility, and maintain personal values against social pressure through executive control and critical thinking processes. Research demonstrates that social influence resistance operates automatically through unconscious detection of persuasion tactics, emotional manipulation, and coercive social pressure, generating defensive responses that protect individual decision-making autonomy. The phenomenon helps explain why some people maintain independent thinking despite strong social pressure, while others show greater susceptibility to group influence and social conformity in various situations. Social influence resistance varies among individuals based on personality traits, cognitive abilities, and social experience, with some people developing robust resistance networks while others show more permeable boundaries between personal and social influence. The resistance system can malfunction in various ways, including excessive resistance that prevents beneficial social learning and cooperation, or insufficient resistance that increases vulnerability to manipulation and exploitation. Understanding social influence resistance has implications for education programs that teach critical thinking and influence recognition, therapeutic interventions that help people develop healthy boundaries, and personal development strategies for maintaining autonomy while remaining socially connected. The discovery of specialized resistance networks reveals that human social cognition involves sophisticated protection mechanisms rather than simple susceptibility to social influence, with resistance representing an active psychological process that requires development and maintenance. Fact 98. Your memory's significance amplifier. The brain contains systems that automatically amplify the perceived significance of personal memories while diminishing the importance of others' experiences, creating self-centered memory biases that make personal history feel more meaningful and consequential than objective evaluation would suggest. This significance amplification occurs through interactions between self-referential processing networks and memory consolidation systems that enhance personal relevance while reducing attention to experiences that don't directly involve the self. Research demonstrates that people consistently overestimate the uniqueness, importance, and lasting impact of their personal experiences while underestimating similar experiences in others' lives, creating systematic biases in memory significance assessment. The phenomenon helps explain why personal problems feel more serious than others' similar difficulties, why individual achievements seem more impressive than comparable accomplishments by others, and why personal memories feel more vivid and meaningful than historical or social memories. Significance amplification serves adaptive functions by creating motivation for personal goal pursuit and maintaining psychological well-being through enhanced self-worth, but can create problems in empathy and social understanding when personal experience becomes disproportionately important. Individual differences in amplification effects relate to self-esteem levels, narcissistic traits, and social perspective-taking abilities, with some people showing extreme personal significance bias, while others maintain more balanced perspectives on personal versus social importance. Understanding significance amplification has implications for improving empathy and social understanding, reducing self-centered thinking patterns, and helping people develop more accurate assessments of personal versus social significance. The discovery of automatic significance amplification reveals that human memory and attention systems contain built-in biases toward self-relevance that systematically distort the perceived importance of personal experiences relative to others' experiences. Fact 99. The unconscious social synchronization engine. Human social interactions involve sophisticated unconscious synchronization systems that coordinate breathing patterns, heart rates, movement rhythms, and neural activity between individuals, creating shared physiological states that enhance communication and emotional connection. This social synchronization occurs through multiple mechanisms, including visual entrainment, auditory coupling, and autonomic nervous system coordination that allows separate individuals to achieve remarkable physiological harmony during meaningful interactions. Research using simultaneous monitoring of multiple people shows that successful communication and emotional connection correlate with physiological synchronization, with stronger sync patterns predicting better relationship outcomes and communication effectiveness. The phenomenon involves mirror neuron systems, autonomic regulation networks, and neural oscillation mechanisms that coordinate individual biological rhythms with others' rhythms through unconscious entrainment processes. Social synchronization varies based on relationship quality, interaction context, and individual synchronization abilities, with close relationships showing stronger physiological coordination, while formal or conflictual interactions may show reduced or misaligned biological rhythms. The synchronization engine helps explain why some social interactions feel energizing and harmonious, while others feel draining or awkward, as physiological alignment or misalignment creates subliminal comfort or discomfort during interpersonal encounters. Individual differences in synchronization capacity relate to empathy levels, social skills, and autonomic nervous system sensitivity, with some people showing natural ability to entrain with others, while others maintain more independent biological rhythms. Understanding social synchronization has applications for improving therapeutic relationships, enhancing team collaboration, and optimizing social environments where physiological harmony can improve communication and relationship satisfaction. The discovery of unconscious synchronization engines reveals that human social connection involves much deeper biological integration than previously recognized, with successful relationships requiring physiological as well as psychological compatibility. Fact 100. Your Brain's Reality Construction Workshop. The human brain operates as a sophisticated reality construction workshop that actively builds conscious experience from fragmentary sensory information, memory associations, expectations, and predictions, creating the seamless sense of unified reality through complex integration processes. This reality construction involves multiple brain systems working together, including sensory processing networks that interpret incoming information, memory systems that provide contextual background, and prediction systems that fill in missing details to create coherent experience. Research demonstrates that conscious reality represents an active construction rather than passive recording of environmental information, with the brain contributing more content to conscious experience than the external environment provides through sensory channels. The phenomenon explains why different people can experience dramatically different realities in the same situations, and why individual consciousness involves unique interpretive frameworks that color all aspects of personal experience. Reality construction operates continuously and automatically, with individuals typically unaware of the extensive mental activity required to create the sense of stable, coherent experience from complex and fragmentary information sources. The construction process can be disrupted by various factors, including fatigue, stress, mental illness, and altered states of consciousness that reveal the active nature of reality building by showing what happens when construction processes malfunction. Individual differences in reality construction relate to cognitive abilities, personality traits, and mental health status, with some people creating more accurate or adaptive realities, while others may construct problematic or distorted versions of experience. Understanding reality construction has implications for treating perceptual disorders, improving critical thinking about personal experience, and recognizing that individual reality involves active mental construction rather than passive reception of objective information. The discovery of reality construction workshops reveals that human consciousness represents remarkable creative activity rather than simple awareness, with each individual actively building their experienced reality through sophisticated neural construction processes. And so we conclude our journey through 100 fascinating facts about the hidden workings of the human mind. Each revelation offers a glimpse into the remarkable complexity and surprising quirks of human psychology, revealing that our minds operate in ways far more intricate and mysterious than we might imagine. From the brain's automatic lie detection systems to the social synchronization engines that connect us with others. From the reality construction workshops that build our conscious experience to the memory palaces with their moving walls and secret rooms, we have explored the wonderful weirdness that makes us uniquely human. These insights remind us that beneath the surface of everyday experience lies an extraordinary psychological universe, filled with automatic processes, hidden biases, and remarkable capabilities that shape every moment of our conscious lives. Understanding these hidden aspects of human psychology not only satisfies our curiosity about the mind, but also provides practical insights for improving our relationships, enhancing our decision-making, and developing greater awareness of the remarkable mental machinery that creates our daily experience. The human brain emerges from this exploration not as a simple computer processing information, but as a dynamic, creative, and deeply social organ that actively constructs reality while navigating complex webs of unconscious influence and automatic processing. We are far more interconnected, predictably irrational, and creatively adaptive than traditional models of human nature might suggest. These 100 weird psychology facts illuminate the extraordinary in the ordinary, revealing that every human mind harbors depths of complexity that continue to surprise and amaze those who seek to understand the magnificent mystery of human consciousness.